Okay, this is the March video chat. Uh, Having some technical issues this time for the YouTube crowd. It's not the end of the world, but basically long sentences are getting cropped from the chat. Even though I see it correctly on my screen, there seems to be no. I both had to do a DPI increase since last time, and OBS just had an update. So I don't know which one is doing it. You'd think like I'm just not stretching it out the right way. That's not it. I just spent about 10 minutes trying to fix this. Chat was helping. I even did like this reset option. So I was going to say what this reminds me of is I seem to remember the sentences from Deus Ex, going from Deus Ex to Deus Ex Invisible War, getting like a lot shorter because they took up more space on the screen and they wanted to show up on TVs. So I guess I'm accidentally incentivizing shorter sentences this time, but I'll try and have this fixed for next time. I have no idea what's going on with this. Just that it's not the obvious thing. It's not just that the window's not stretched enough or that there's a crop filter on. It's something else. So, um, so yeah, and there's also a delay. There's like the chat is like 10 lines behind on OBS where I'm seeing it live. So we're getting a half record here. I'll read out anything important. Okay, so the what? Yeah, announcements. Obviously, not where I want to be. What's happening is this side video is just going on and on and on, and I'm gonna finish it. However, it's way past the point where I feel like this was an acceptable length for it to be taking longer, and then I get it out. A similar thing was happening when I did the games as a service video. So what's gonna happen is I feel like it's just going on too long with no new videos. So I'm gonna keep working on it, but on shorter bursts. And right now the priority is going to be next game dungeon with working with editors. Hopefully, I've gone through several people. A couple people are two people so far are looking promising, which is more than I was expecting. So we'll see how that goes. And also Freeman's Mind. Freeman's Mind, I'm just gonna go through like strong on. Again, I can't promise when stuff is coming out this month, but I can promise having everything completed except for sound effects. For I think I want to say at least 2 Freeman's Mind episodes this month, but could be more. I'm juggling a lot of different things, but so I can promise that much because then that's all on me. The sound effects I get help on, so if it needs longer, it'll take longer. But what else? So Freeman's Mind and the editing, depending on how it goes, the next game dungeon is going to be a big one. So if it goes well with the editing, yeah, it could come out this month, but not much longer than this month, I think. For sure, something's coming out this month. So I'm just, this is like in the past before I started doing the video chats. This is one of those times I would just hide and like people would like speculate if I'm alive or not. And that's what I would have done in the past. But since I'm doing the video chats, you're just seeing me. Yeah, it's like the chat. Yeah, what's going on in the videos is kind of like what's going on with the chat right now. It's like it's there, but not all the way. You know, so I really am gonna make up for it. It's just like the pressure's building and building and building for me. So, believe it or not, I'm actually optimistic. Especially, I'm optimistic at this point in time. I'll say that. So, let's see. Yeah, again, I'll have to fix the chat next time because if I do it now live, it's probably gonna take me like 45 minutes at least trying to troubleshoot this. But okay, so yeah, video for something coming out this month. I don't know what yet. Let's see. I'm trying to think of any other announcements. I guess not really. I've just mostly been doing this video that's been turning into a time sink. So, um, yeah, okay. So I'll start on the submitted questions, and I'll take live ones at the end, and I'll read out the live ones when we get to that. Okay, so the first question is, what are your thoughts on what makes a game's open world interesting and worth exploring? And this is one, like, I had to stop and think about it. And my first reaction is I consciously don't know. But, I mean, like intuition and subconsciously, some worlds immediately grab me and others don't. But I thought of a few things I could think of. One is just having good lighting. And that doesn't mean like, high end. It's more like good art direction. I mean, when I say good lighting, games in the 90s could have great lighting, like 3D good lighting, by what I'm talking about. Like if it's outdoors, having like, like a nice time of day that you're showing, that sort of thing where the light looks nice. Or, if it's darker, having things like lampposts or light sources or torches that can show this. So it can make things seem just appealing. Like not even with open world games, but just any game. Like if the art direction like really throws me off and I just think it looks ugly, it makes me really not want to play the game. It's few exceptions to that. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about, having worked in the Source engine, look at any Source engine map or game in full bright mode. They're all hideous. Like it's, in fact, when I would make Civil Protection or other stuff, I would have to remember this is going to look good. It's just that I would have to get used to the ugly lighting for, setting up the scene and doing the animation, everything. I mean, I guess a lot of game engines now you get a pretty decent preview, but yeah, look up any Source game in full bright mode and it looks awful. So you want to get far, far away from that. And I've seen some people are saying, "Yikes, dude," and creepy. Maybe it's about the chat. The what? They're asking a picture of my wife. Well, that's up to her. She's put one or two on her Twitter before. I wouldn't have a problem with it if she doesn't, but I think she's pretty shy about that. So yeah, that's one thing. This to make sure the lighting looks appealing in some way. That's one of the reasons tinting drives me crazy, because it can kill the mood. But let's see, the lighting's good. I thought about it is you want the world to kind of raise your interest in some way. Like maybe you see like a tower in the. See, it all depends on what kind of open world you're talking about. Like it could be like you see a tower in the distance, or like a cave up on top of opening on top of a mountain or something, or some temple. Or if it's like in a city, you might want to see like a more spectacular building. Or if it's like a contemporary setting, you might want to have something like where maybe there's a fire in the distance, or there's like a crowd gathered around one area and you're not sure why. Or if you look down an alley, you see some shady looking guys looking back at you, that sort of thing. Something that suggests this world is alive, or say it's more barren, like it's a lot of plains. And something like I've seen a lot of screenshots of, was it Death Stranding that look like that. I'm intentionally trying to keep myself in the dark about that game because I'll probably play it eventually. But there's like a lot of open plains in that game from what I've seen. So if you had something like that, you can maybe have like a cliff face off in the distance, or you see something reflective far off. So it's something that draws your attention and suggests there's stuff there in this world that you're going to want to check out. I was trying to think of, yeah, because I was thinking I'm trying to think of examples where like you don't want to get, in my opinion, a procedurally generated feel from it. because procedural generation is good for padding things out and making the world seem just large and massive. However, I think on some level, you want the player to understand is that there's hand-play stuff in here also that you want to go and seek out. So if like a lot of trees or buildings are procedurally generated, but you see a trail leading off and you don't know where that goes, well, then that gets your interest. So you can have a lot of procedural generated stuff along the way, but that trail's leading you towards something that's more effort and thought was put into it, that sort of thing. Let's see what I'm trying to think of other examples. Yeah, like in again, so much depends on the setting because it can vary a lot. But I remember this game had other problems, but I remember the map design actually being pretty good. Two Worlds. When I played that, I remember just kind of going off on this side path, and I think I followed it a ways, and then I found like this sort of hidden shrine, and there was a monster at it, and that sort of thing. And there might have been some loot at it, and I was saying you want stuff like that, stuff that your brain understands that if you're wandering off, there's something out there, Whereas if you just have lots of procedural generated stuff and just a marker on your map that says go here, well, then that almost, the world might look really neat and that could be kind of a treat in itself, but that sort of thing can kind of make it feel more like a chore, like you're just driving to some relative's house or something. It's like, okay, you're just doing basic navigating. And when you're doing a lot of navigating, that's time you're not really paying as much attention to the world itself. And it can kind of feel more mundane and rote. As much as I like maps for games, if you can make a good enough open world that your player doesn't get a map, or else they don't get a map until much later in the game, that might be better, because then you're relying on your world design to carry the player and kind of like lightly steer them places they can go, that they're going to get something out of it. Because I'm thinking maps, as much as I like them, if you're just trying to have like a good open world experience, I'm not sure they're that good a thing, if you're just kind of wanting to explore. So, but if it's the sort of thing where like if you want to go online and see a shot of it, then sure, but. Okay, someone's saying the whole tower exploration game mechanic is a bit overused. Well, no, I didn't mean that as a game mechanic. I mean that there's something there. Like you see something in the distance that there's there. See, with Ubisoft, they made that the kind of routine pattern thing where that if you know exactly what it's going to be every single time, then that's not good. But say there was like one tower and you go there and it's locked, and there's like some runes on it or something, and you're thinking, oh, okay, well, this is interesting. Maybe I'm going to have to come back here later in the game and find out what this is about. Or you go to a tower and like, let's say you enter it and all of a sudden it turns night and you don't know why. So you'd have something mysterious going on. That's not the Ubisoft tower mechanic. So it's somebody's saying that's literally Elden Ring. I know that was a shot in the dark. I have not watched any footage of Elden Ring besides the trailer. I've seen a couple screenshots. That's about it. That's one I'm gonna want to. When I eventually play it, I'll probably want to go in blind. So that was just a blind guess. So I guess they're doing a good job then. But yeah, it doesn't have to be a tower, but just something that you see off in the distance, and it makes you curious, But again, if it's like a real contemporary setting, and there's not like a lot of fantasy or sci-fi or anything, then you have to use different things, because then, well, the setting is whatever city you're in. So, if you see something lit up in the distance, that might just be a bank, and nothing particularly important for the story. So that way you need to find, like, you could have people like running off or somebody chasing them, or Well, I mentioned a couple other examples, but yeah, I mean that's all I have. I'm sure there's people who are. I'm sure there's game designers who probably understand this much better than I do. That my brain's just getting hints of this, but when I think of worlds I want to explore, I see like paths leading off in the distance, or interesting things in the distance, or signs that this is not just that if I travel a long ways or go around the corner, I'm not just going to see a procedurally generated remix of stuff that's already in front of me. You know, I'm going to see something different, or stuff, things that raise questions, that sort of thing. So, okay. Let's see. What were your childhood, teenage years like? How was school? Did you play any sports growing up? I didn't really like being a kid, to be honest. In fact, I think until I had major depression, which was like 18 or 19, I remember each year being better than the year before. It just, I mean, I don't know. It just, you know, things can feel oppressive as a kid because you have all kinds of rules, and you want to have fun, you can't, and I don't know. I didn't really like being a kid. I guess similar for being a teenager. Just yeah, you know, it's a lot of rules, and then it's like as you get older, you got to realize you have to figure out what you want to do with your life, and if you don't have a good answer, then it doesn't help your outlook. How was school? I didn't particularly like school either. I took it far more seriously than I should have. I had good grades throughout most of school. Like, and I'd say I really shouldn't have taken it seriously at all. But however, I guess the only part about taking it seriously that, like looking back on it now, that I feel like, yeah, there was benefit to that, is just being able to knowing, getting experience doing hard projects, you know, like big research papers or studying for a test, just so that you develop skills in being able to tackle difficult things, you know, that sort of thing. Uh, it's, yeah, let's see. Did I play any sports? Yeah, I mean, like in the neighborhood I was at, when it happened, I would do basketball games, but that was pretty informal. In school itself, I did track and field in middle school, and I can't remember if they even offered it in high school, but they had cross country running, so I did that. So it's just did some races that I was better for. Yeah, for track and field, I did. Was it like, I think running long jump. I can't remember if standing jump was a activity too. I did hurdles. I like those. I would have enjoyed doing hurdles more. I think that's all I competed in for track and field. The stuff I was best at was basically endurance. So I wasn't necessarily like the fastest runner, or like the could jump the farthest. It's just that I could keep going longer than the vast majority of people. So mostly all I did, so I just did the longest event in track and field, which was the mile run. But even then, I probably would have done much better if there was a 10-mile run. So that then everybody else would have just collapsed, and I would have been able to keep going. But let's see. Yeah, yeah, on the Fallout stats, I would probably have above average endurance. You know, for uh, let's see. But that's why cross country was good. I mean, even then there was still definitely people better than I was, but I was at least able to hold my own in longer races because, you know, it's uh, just by completing the race, it puts you above a certain class of runners for that event. You know. So yeah, I don't really miss my childhood. I mean, it wasn't. I mean, it was like kind of, you know, middle class thing, but I just, I don't miss it. Like, so okay. Yeah, I was saying that the end of they're talking about how I mentioned that the death of graphic adventure games never really happened. That's just kind of a myth. But they're saying, do you think there was ever a golden age for graphic adventures, and if the quality is kept up, or even if the quality is kept up, which particular ones would you say you've enjoyed the most? Yeah, I mean, during the heydays of like, you know, Sierra and LucasArts, so like early to mid '90s, there were a lot of quality titles coming out in that genre. I mean, there's still been good ones since then, but I'm not sure if you've had as many quality titles in that time span as for that genre as you did then. Uh, some of my favorites, well, later again, Puzzle Agents definitely way up there, but I mean, I remember enjoying the Dagger of Amun Ra a lot. That one had good presentation. I like the Space Quest. I still need to play some of the Space Quest games. I've played the 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 VGA remake of 1, and I've played 4, and I've played 6. So I want to play the VGA fan made remake of 2, and I need to play 5. I'll probably won't do 3. I don't miss the EGA graphics and typing in your commands, but I'll probably watch a playthrough of it. Um, King's Quest 5 was really impressive for the time visually. And I think it still holds up visually, but the gameplay, even then, it was just, it was pretty bad. I mean, because it was just loaded with those ways to screw yourself and not know it. Or, and I'm not, yeah, they didn't really get away from that, Sierra at least, until afterwards. With LucasArts, I really enjoyed Sam and Max Hit the Road, and Day of the Tentacle was good. Though, like, I feel like they had better humor, but I sort of like how I sort of like visually the Sierra stuff better than the LucasArts stuff. Secret of Monkey Island is really good too, but I'm trying to I'm trying to think of ones. It's hard to say like how much was the game and how much was me playing them when I was younger. So they might have had more of a novelty and impressionable factor to them. So, but I mean, not to say LucasArts is bad with the visuals. It's just that I prefer the Sierra look a little more. Uh, I still need to play the Quest for Glory series. I'm gonna do that eventually. But yeah, I think my favorites. I really liked that. This is one where I think it was like all right, but yeah, well, I made the video on Rama. That one, Rama was very impressive. That it was not the visuals. Like the visuals kind of felt a little phoned in, but the music and just the allure of the alien world and good puzzles was what made that. Again, I made a video on it, like Legend of Kyrandia a lot. It's not my favorite, but it was interesting and weird. Return to Zork was one I played. That one was odd, but it has a certain level of intrigue. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly like which one exactly would be my favorite, but well, if you just my first thought was the Dagger of Amun Ra, so I guess that's something for it. I like the kind of like escalating murder mystery aspect of it, but they're just yeah, because you want the combination of like nice presentation and like a storyline that's like really grabbing you. So it's for the storyline grabbing me. I think I was really impressed with Rama the most on that, or well, maybe Rama really gave that feeling of going deeper and deeper into an alien world, and I love that. So They said the first video game they played was Monkey Island 2. Yeah, that's an odd one to start with. Monkey Island 2, it's like if you were expecting another like kind of goofy swashbuckling adventure like one, but you know with some more fun to it. Monkey Island 2 was more odd than that. It was like I don't think it's what you were expecting if you played the first one. It was just kind of it's it feels more just like kind of like what I would expect from like maybe like a road trip movie or something. Like it was kind of weird. So uh okay, some more questions. Oh yeah, I mentioned that astronauts wouldn't bring unnecessary items into space, but do you know a man stuck in a corned beef sandwich with them? And they mentioned the gorilla costume. I have seen that gorilla costume video of the guy in space. That's a fantastic one. Yeah, I guess you have a point with that. Though I think my point's still valid for Martian Gothic because the tone was so much different. Because in Martian Gothic, it was like a it's like ideally I think it was supposed to be like a rescue mission, but barring that, it's an investigative one where they're trying to figure out what happened, knowing that you have dozens of people dead. So there would have been a real urgency and more somber tone to it, I would think, for it that you wouldn't have you'd have had kind of like less clowning around in space because they need to get there as soon as possible. And I mean this is not knowing that there's going to be a crash landing, just knowing that they've lost contact. Yeah, they probably need to rescue people, and if they can't rescue people, then a lot of people have died, and they need to find out what happened. So, it's very different tone. You know, it's for what they're taking with them into space. But yeah, I guess maybe I guess my brain looks at going into space as such a big deal that my brain just defaults to like the cross all your T's and dot your I's mode. Like just get everything right. Do this as do this as safely and as efficiently as possible. Like just like that's what my brain thinks of when I think of like a shuttle launch. Like just we need to make this we need to do this as right as we possibly can, so so my brain is kind of primed into thinking like, wait, why are we bringing this up into space? This is like this is weight that could be going towards an air or a backup air filter or something like that. It's you have to be really deliberate with what you're doing with space. Okay, let's see. Unless the game requires it, like in the clans episode, how much do you tend to save scum? I've forgotten that term, but I think I had seen it before. It's like where you like save constantly, like with the quick save option. I think when I was younger, I used to do that more. I definitely do remember doing that when I first played Deus Ex, like trying to get it right. But what I found is even then, I think that was more just me like taking the game seriously and trying to do it right. What I found as I got older is I don't particularly enjoy doing that. So I kind of prefer not even having to think about saving when I can. And usually if I do it, it's because a lot of stuff is going down. But like if I've gone through a big battle on Serious Sam, I might want to hit a save. And in some games, it's like the stakes are too high if you don't. But like a couple that come to mind are with I love the game, but I don't like this aspect of it. They Are Billions. That one, the way it's designed, it's designed for you to be playing it in hardcore mode. Meaning, if the zombies get through and take out your base, that's it. That level's over. You have to start all over. And, maybe if the missions were like 15, 20 minutes, I'd be all right with that. But you have long missions in that where you can be spending 45 minutes, an hour or more on these levels. And I'm thinking those stakes are too high. And even then, like in that game, there's some situations where, depending on the difficulty level, you almost have to know which direction some of these attacks are coming from. Because if they're coming from like if you're trying to pad it out equally on all sides of your fort, then the attack that comes from the left is going to be too strong. And then once they get through, you have so little margin for error for containing that once they get through your walls. So, whereas if you know they're coming from the left, then you can concentrate your forces on the left side for that, and then you'll survive that wave of the zombies coming. And I was thinking the other game I thought of that was like that was Supreme Commander. Like Supreme Commander, it's like it would be nice and fair until they had that battle area expanded message, and then there's like this onslaught of this like battalion coming at you from the north that you were totally not ready for, because you were taking out this smaller base off to the left side that seemed reasonable, and that was your objective, and you had no idea this was coming. So you basically had, if you didn't know that was coming, you pretty much had to go back to a save from like 5 or 10 minutes ago, so you could start building up your defenses from the top. I mean, it was that was bad design in my opinion. I mean, maybe if you wanted it as like a challenge mode or something, but I like the idea of the battle area expanding. That was a very cool idea. It's just that you need to give the player a reasonable amount of time to react to what you're throwing at them now. And Supreme Commander totally did not do that in multiple levels. So yeah, in fact, I remember in Supreme Commander, if I had gone like 5 or 10 minutes and things were fine, I would like have a panic of like, oh God, like I'll save now, but I might have to reload. Just like, oh no, everything's going fine. Oh no, what have I done? You know, so it was because it would just create that kind of atmosphere for it. But yeah, I don't like to. I don't even like having to think about it too much, or I like it to be fairly obvious, you know, that maybe there's like a big decision coming up. Well, I mentioned Deus Ex again. I remember my friend was played it before. I was borrowing his copy. Played it before me, and he was telling me, you know, save your game before you get on the plane at Lebedev Airport. Like so, like, and but there could be other situations in games where they're kind of let you know you're making a big decision, like or. So yeah, it might be good to save at those points where if you're not sure how you want to play this, it's like, well, should I, you know, rescue this guy or should I go help this guy in this mission? It's not obvious. Whereas if there's a certain style you want to play the game and the game's just asking you if you want to do that, then yeah, I might not even worry about it then. But yeah, I try to avoid that sort of thing. I feel like if it's the sort of game I have to be quick saving like all the time, to me that says the difficulty's probably too high for me. So, let's see. Yeah, actually, well, my last thought on that is I think there's a few like Windows games I'm thinking of like some vertical shooters that are sort of off the beaten path that there's no YouTube video footage of or full footage of, and I can't find any information that, for all I know, nobody's ever beaten it. So for those, I might try to go and see if I can use a virtual machine to kind of get to the end. That the difficulty be way too high for me trying to do it legitimately. Although using save states on a virtual machine is kind of a bigger deal because that's a long kind of load process sometimes. It's not, I remember it not being a casual thing for you know, just doing a save state on a full virtual machine for Windows. Okay. I noticed some video titles for Game Dungeon are formatted differently than others, such as Life is Strange or The Black Mirror. Is there a reason for this? Well, oh yeah, well, this is, somebody's saying this is A/B testing. No, it's not even that deliberate. It's more like when I feel like I have extra time and people can help me when I get help with the titles, then I'll put it up. But other times I'm just like, oh my God, I gotta get the video out. And I just go with like the default titles. But if you're, I think I misread this question. I thought you were talking about the thumbnails. The thumbnails, it's a similar situation. Like the older ones, I didn't even make one. I just had YouTube pick something, so I said fine, just put it up. Now I realize I should probably put more time into it. But even now, I have not made one single thumbnail for the videos, I don't think, where that wasn't like the absolute last step. And I was making the thumbnails while the video was encoding. So it's like, okay, I finally finished the edit. Now I can render it and then encode it. And so but I usually have to wait on that. So it's like during that time, then I finally would go out and like try and kind of look through my footage and maybe put together something to make a thumbnail to go with it. And even now my style is changing because in the past, like for Game Dungeon, I just tried to make something that would kind of like look nice, like on the website. But now I realize the smarter way to do it is just prioritize YouTube, just all the way. So now what I do sometimes is I'll like, so I usually don't have like the collage style as much as I used to have before. What I'll do is, I mean, I might do it if I feel like it fits. But yeah, like I thought it fit pretty well for Veil of Darkness, where I had just had the two heads background. So I might do that sometimes. Other times I just will take screenshots from different areas that I feel like this is, again, me not knowing what I'm doing. I'm just kind of letting my subconscious take the wheel. So I'll take a variety of screenshots from it or footage and put them together, and then I shrink it down, and then I just kind of like look at it and think like, okay, which one, if I was just browsing on YouTube, which one would I find the most appealing? And then I'll try to pick that one. So, and that's kind of my approach to it now. And then I just kind of add a title. At some point, I should probably have some sort of like little logo or insignia to suggest this is Game Dungeon, and then maybe go retroactively fix some of the older thumbnails. See, if I was smart, that's what I would have been doing all along. Right now, I'm just kind of adding the Commodore 64 style text to it for the title of it. But yeah, so that's my approach now, is just because what I found is sometimes the collage thing would like maybe look nice on a website, but then shrunken down as a thumbnail on YouTube, it wouldn't look as appealing. So I thought, well, I'm just kind of doing more work and it's not paying off. So it's Chuck with Doom Guy Eyes was perfect thumbnail material. Yeah, and that was from the game too. That was when you get that golden, or geez, I even forget how you. So I didn't Photoshop in the eyes. That was from the game. I remember. I forget. Yeah, I think we covered that in the episodes. See, that's the thing. If you watch the videos, like especially more than once, you probably know the episodes better than I do. It's because I know it like inside and out while I'm making the episode, and then it just kind of falls off pretty rapidly in my memory. So, let's see. So yeah, unfortunately, there's more chaos than I'd like for the titles and the thumbnails and everything. It's just that tends to be like a lower priority for me when making the videos, even though thumbnails should probably be very high. Maybe someday, yeah. In fact, I plan to go back and adjust all the old Freeman's Mind thumbnails to do the new style and get relevant screenshots from that part, and I'll probably fix some of the game dungeons. Some I'll fix, some I'll leave as they are. I'm kind of undecided, but especially the ones where it was just like YouTube picking out a screenshot. I should probably fix those. Yeah. Next, well, saying when resorting to cannibalism, what cut would you prefer? Well, if I'm at that stage, I'm not gonna care. So, and my thoughts on this are, if you're interested in this question, I recommend the movie Ravenous with Guy Pearce. I forget what year it came out. Probably like late '90s, something like that. It's pretty decent. If you're someone who's studying music, you should definitely watch that movie. The soundtrack is pretty unconventional. It does unusual things there. Also, I think that was the first scary movie I saw where they have a scene that felt scary taking place during the day. That is so hard to pull off. I mean, I guess Cujo did it, but I guess Texas Chainsaw Massacre did that, but that is not easy to have like a real scary, creepy scene during daylight. And not just like as the sun is setting or something, but like, full, because you gotta kind of build it up. But yeah, they're cannibalism, yeah, without spoiling too much, it's definitely something that's brought up in the movie. And also that movie, I think I heard the movie was directed by a vegetarian or a vegan, I forget which one. So they did a good job. They did a good job. Yeah, it's definitely a movie worth watching. So I think that's about all I have for cannibalism. But that's the one that really stands out. Oh yeah, I was saying, yeah, I didn't have a great answer to this one. What's the smallest annoyance you found in a game that made you stop playing completely? Well, it's not that small if it makes me stop playing, Again, I mentioned stuff like art direction. If the gameplay is really tedious, or it's feeling more like a chore and it's not like making me curious what else there is to it, or if I'm having to redo a level like 20 times and it's not looking like the 21st time is going to be any better than the previous ones. Yeah, I'm not sure if like little small things really like throw me off. It's more like a culmination of it. How much has the Russian invasion of Ukraine affected your daily life? This might get the video demonetized. I don't know, but that's okay. I can have it demonetized for the video chats. Oh yeah, speaking of which, that thing with the Division, the BBC claim on it, it is ongoing. That we're on to the second stage now. That like they doubled down, and I think once it hits the third stage, yeah. Actually, there's a chance the video could get taken down temporarily. So if you want to like back it up, go ahead. I have it back temporarily. I feel pretty confident it's not going to get taken down permanently. What might happen is, I think in like a week or two, they could just refute the appeal. Yeah, that's pretty stupid if I'm having to appeal to them and they're the ones making the claim. At which case, I think YouTube, if they deny the appeal, I think YouTube gives me a copyright strike then, and my only option is to delete the video unless I wait 7 days. And then the option, which used to be instant, emerges to file a counter notification. And then if I do that, they have 10 days to respond. And if they basically would have to sue me at that point. And if that happens, I'll make that very public. But But at that point, they would have to yield, and I would essentially be calling their bluff, and it would what? Then it'll finally get restored, and then I have the copyright strike removed. But so we'll see how much they want to ask. This has gone on more than any other video, than any other claim I've had, or anything like that. The others I've been able to swat off more easily. This one is going on the longest. And the only other time it escalated to the second level like this was also with the BBC for Potty Pigeon. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, back to the question. Yeah, how much this affected my daily life? Well, so far, not much, but I'm at the northern end of Poland. I imagine if I was like at a border town, I'd probably be seeing the effects a lot more. Are you at all worried, or do you feel safe living within a NATO country? Well, put it like this, I'm not worried. I mean, I've heard some speculation that, they're trying to invade Europe. I don't think that's what they're trying to do. In fact, I would be, I mean, my understanding is I don't think they're even trying to occupy Ukraine. Though, okay, it's been difficult for me to understand exactly what's happening entirely, because there's been a lot of misinformation on this. Like, usually what I do when I try to find out information on something controversial, when I don't know what's happening, is I look at, like, well, if there's really conflicting sides to this, I look at what both sides are saying and see if there's a thread in between them, or seeing, well, if one side is accusing the others of this, do they refute that? Do they have evidence? Do they even address it at all? Or, like, is one side seem to be asking more? And, well, anyway, the conclusion I've gotten from this is that I think in order for me to really understand what's going on, I would probably need a couple college level classes in, like, the modern history of the countries involved with, Ukraine and Russia, the United States and NATO's involvement and all of that. Because it's like, there's a lot of conflicting information. Like, so it's, in the chat, well, you'll see it in a second. I'm CIA says, every side here has a huge incentive to lie their ass off. Yeah, that might be, I think that's the case. And I think there's truth telling in between that. So it's just, like, I think an academics or somebody with, like, who really understands the situation is going to have to sort out. Like, I'm definitely not the person to. Yeah, what I was going to say about feeling safe. So, put it like this, it's like yes and no. I think if you're not in the Ukraine, or maybe like right on the border, you're probably pretty safe from this. However, thankfully, most of the sources I've seen seem to suggest that there's not interest in this going nuclear. If it were to go nuclear, then no one's really safe, no matter where you are. I mean, I guess, depending on how much it escalates, in which case, yeah, that wouldn't be safe at all. However, where I used to live in Virginia prior to this, I wasn't super far away from the Radford Army ammunition plant. And it seems like that would be a pretty significant target. Maybe not top, it might be in a top 10. I don't know. So it's like, and even then, it's like, well, how much of a nuclear escalation? If it's going all out, it's kind of like nobody's really safe. And then you're looking at just a horrid existence. Maybe, I don't know, maybe South America might be a good place to be. Like, because I've heard, like, the wind currents from fallout are, like, less likely to cross the equator. So that might be a good spot to be from this. But everything's off if this were to escalate to something nuclear. And thankfully it doesn't seem to, my understanding is, like, from like both sides seem to suggest that that's not the case. Like it's yeah. The person named I'm CIA in the chat. I feel like yeah, whether they are or not, every side does have incentive to lie on what's happening. It's like it sounds like a mess, and like this should be left to people. This is not this is not a simple thing. I feel confident saying that. Like the causes behind this, like the involvement of the U.S. and maybe what Russia's been up to, like what Ukraine's been doing. Like none of this strikes me as simple. Like so, I feel confident saying that. But like it's yeah. So for safety, I mean. Yeah, I would suggest getting out of Ukraine if you have the option. Though I think I heard that like what men 18 to 60 like it's mandatory for them to stay in the country while the conflict's going on. So I mean, yeah, if you're not drafted or on active service, I would suggest going to places that just aren't appealing targets. Like my understanding is like Russia's trying to go for the they're trying to really focus on military targets. So if you're just in some small town out in the middle of nowhere that nobody cares about, there's nothing strategic about it. Yeah, that might be a good place to be if you're in Ukraine, uh, or just yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's not World War. It's not the kind of fighting or scale of stuff we saw in like World War II or something like that, where it's just bombing across the country, just getting utter devastation, front lines. It seems much more targeted, but who knows? The the who is it? The journalist I respect, yeah, Chris Hedges. He made a point, with war. He compared war to Pandora's box. Once you open it, like things could come spilling out. So you can't take anything for granted. Like it's or somebody's saying wonder when the Yellowstone caldera will blow up. Yeah, that's another one where it's well, thankfully that's one that could easily not happen in our lifetimes and many generations. See, that's one of those things where in geologic terms, any day now could mean in the next 10,000 years. So it's hard to say with Yellowstone. Uh, yeah. This isn't like freedom. Yeah, this isn't like the game Freedom Fighters. Like when we're talking about like the nuance of the situation. I didn't have this level of confusion when playing the game Freedom Fighters. This one's it, it, it's a mess for sure. And I don't know what's going on, but I know enough to know I don't know what's going on. That's what I would leave it at. But yeah, I think I'm as safe here as I would be in if nuclear bombs aren't involved, then I feel relatively safe as I would anywhere else. And hopefully the powers involved in this are sane enough to like not let it escalate more than it has, though. Uh, or at least not anything not involving nuclear bombs. I consider a win. So I'll leave it at that. Have any other life goals like the movie or other projects not as big in scale come up since the last update? Not come up, but I've been there's been sort of progression on not the Dream software, but the stepping stone to the Dream software, which is converting 2D images to basically 3D. So it's not making a full map out, but it's taking like just 2D video and converting it as though it's 3D. Oh yeah, I forgot. I had two interviews in the past week. One I think has gone up. I put it on Twitter and on the website. It was the No Frauds podcast. And I talked some about that and that. And the other one I forget the name of. He'll probably send me an email once it's done. Yeah. The second one I kind of like. I kind of like the form of it a little bit. I was feeling a little crazy by the end of the other podcast that I did, where it was kind of like this, where I'm just kind of talking to the camera because he let me talk for so long, and I would pause and you maybe just make a simple comment, then I'd talk again, and where it was more of a back and forth on the second one. Then it had a very chill tone to it too. And the topics kind of veered off more. So it like he was bringing up stuff I didn't know about, like apparently bear attacks in California, or not even attacks, but a bear invasion in California, where this bear has been basically breaking into multiple houses for food. That sounded interesting. So it was stuff like that. I'll put a link to it on the website, I guess on the description once it gets it up. But yeah, but in the first one I talk more about the advancement on the 2D to 3D stuff. It's like we are so damn close on this. It's driving me crazy from different directions. So okay, on one hand, I said before, there's software that will generate 2D to 3D stuff. Yeah, it's using machine learning to just look at imagery and then generate a depth map for that, so that it takes its best guess as to the depth of it. And the existing software for that, like I think Midas was in, like King Midas, that was in the lead. However, it wasn't good for video because from frame to frame, it could vary. Like it would still be accurate, but like the level of depth could change a lot. So if you plug, so it would just sort of look like a flicker if you're looking at it play back. But if you're actually plugging in that into depth data, then it would just sort of go like this, like spaz out, like going front and back. So it wasn't there yet. I was able to smooth it out a little bit with video filters, but there is a better algorithm now based off of that, which I think I sent him a link. I could put a link in here too. Maybe make some notes here. Depth link. And it's much better. It's looking more promising. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's like this stuff is like black magic for how effective it is for just working from 2D imagery. Having no geometry to work with at all and taking its best guess. It is damn good for that. Yeah, and actually there was another one, I forget, that it got more details, but it made more errors. I forget the name of it. It's something Lee Lens or something like that. I forget, but I was interested more in the more consistent one. So right now, oh yeah, but that software, I think it's open source. It's on GitHub. The default method only generates a video from frames, and it's kind of highly compressed. So I wanted a little more flexibility towards just outputting like uncompressed frames or uncompressed video. I have someone looking into that for me right now. That hopefully they're going to get back to me, and I think there'll be an option for it. And it'd be nice if we could tighten in the how much the scene can change from frame to frame to kind of clamp down on the twitchiness. But so that's one half of it. The other half is I saw this prototype program called VRN .app. And this thing, it's like the other half of what I need, but this takes a 2D video and converts it to 3D, and then you can manipulate a lot of variables, like the level of depth, your distance from it, the scale, I'm not sure if you can really move around in it. I think that would, I mean, you can't. You're not going to want to move around too much because if you get side to side, then it's going to look really distorted. But some. But anyway, so that's great. Except it only works real time, and the results are pretty terrible for real time because the. This is complex stuff with the machine learning. Maybe in a couple years we'll have the hardware or else good enough software that we can do this effectively real time, but it was not there, at least for my hardware. So we're talking about like single digit frame rate. And even then, because it's using the faster method to do this real time, the results aren't nearly as good. And they're just, it's a mess. It's like, it's not, I wouldn't even consider it good enough to like even mess with if these were the results. So I just need something that can take take the generated video, take the video and the generated depth maps and plug it into the 3D manifestation from the point cloud that it's using, like this is doing. If I could just get this damn program to import stuff, then we'd be there. But when it did work, you could pause it at certain points, and then the depth would look pretty good. And when it did look good, it was like even better than I was envisioning. So the potential of this is so huge. Like I remember thinking when I saw comparisons of the depth map generations, there was a video showing it, and like the video only had like 600 views, and I was thinking, is this going to be the sort of thing where just like a handful of people know how amazing this is and are experiencing like all these different kind of worlds like they're there just from video footage? Or is this the sort of thing where like in 10 years, billions of people have experienced this at least once? Like, I don't know. It was striking me as something like that. Oh yeah, something else I wanted to mention. Since the chat seems to have been kind of stuck for a while, my internet's been kind of a little wonky lately. I'm kind of curious. If I just seem to cut out entirely, go ahead and just type in freeze in capital letters in the chat if you see that happen. So, just if you see it, like, you know, if I just stop talking and I'm frozen, so like a hiccup, I'll probably come back, but if you see it, I'm just curious if that'll happen during this. Okay, but yeah, so if I could combine these two programs together, we'd be like 95% there. But on top of that, I learned there's a term apparently for what I'm doing. It's called 6 degrees of freedom video, or 6DOF. And however, that's not the most, the idea is you're watching a 3D video, but you can kind of walk around in it too. So that's where the 6 degrees come from, like 3 degrees for moving, for what you're looking at, and 3 degrees for moving around. However, that term isn't the most helpful because that kind of lumps in like kind of two different ways of doing this, because one is just taking a 2D video, producing the depth map, and then throwing that in 3D. That's what I'm trying to do. The other is like a lot more intensive, where it involves either filming with like really special cameras to like kind of capture more of like the sides of objects around you, or going in manually and like making a 3D scene. Like let's say you're like filming a kitchen or something. Or like, okay, you would have the footage, but then you would also go in inside Unity or something and then just do basic modeling of that kitchen in there, and then playing the video on top of that to give it to give it sort of like training, not training wheels, sort of like a scaffolding for it to hang on for the 3D data. And that looks great, but that's way more work. Like that takes, I mean, you have to be really, you might as well make a game if you're going to do that level of work on it. Whereas what I'm talking about can be almost entirely automated. So that just opens up so many doors. And so I learned this, and apparently there's a program called 6DOF Viewer, made by Pseudoscience is the name of the company. So I downloaded that, I installed it, and then I click on it and just nothing happens. However, they have versions for Oculus Rift, Vive, and mixed reality. And I have the mixed reality, so that's the version I use. So maybe the other ones work, but there was no like a more general purpose Steam VR version or something like that. So it's like, damn it, I was telling my wife about this, that this is like we have a fully functioning space shuttle or like a starship or something, but we need to like we need to like have it lift off and it like ignite the launch, and we just have to like twist these wires together to like make sure the current goes from the generator to the space shuttle. The space shuttle's already built. The space navigation stuff's already done. It's like, but we just gotta hook these wires together. That's what this feels like. It's driving me crazy trying to get this working. So I'll give some links to this in the YouTube description. But so yeah, I did waste some time on that, but like, the potential is. Oh yeah, also want to say for this VRIN program, unless I would not recommend this for normal people. Like, this is purely just, you understand all the concepts that are going on here, so you just want like a real rough taste of what's possible. This is like in no way representative of how good it's going to be. So like it's we're just on the cusp of this. It's, man, I'm not used to this, where I'm like ahead of the I'm ahead of the curve of mainstream technology. You know, where obviously I'm not the person writing this stuff. Those are just complete wizards doing that. But you know, usually I hear about, usually some companies already involved in making something like this, whereas I'm not aware of that. This seems more like in hobbyist turf right now. So why don't you put a bounty in the crafting of this Marvel app you want? Well, I don't know how much I could afford. I might, yeah. I mean, I think 3 figures is about as high as I could go on that, but yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see. It's yeah. That might be worth it at some point. Okay, I should get the more questions. But yeah, so no new life goals, I guess, besides that. How would you compare U.S. society versus Polish society? And they're saying the social fabric in the U.S. feels as if the bonds between people grow fewer and fewer due to growing isolation among people in general. Some countries in Europe seem to have communities that are more tightly knit. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm the best person to ask about that, because I'm still kind of an outsider, despite having lived in Poland a while. I definitely was I guess that's one of the reasons I did move to Poland, is because I definitely was observing what you're talking about in the U.S., where at the time I had been doing stuff like having meetups with my friends, or we might play like Magic or something like that. But you know, one by one, they ended up getting jobs elsewhere or just going to school somewhere else. So they just left. And then it was just kind of me there. So I didn't have much tying me down to the US by the time I did move. And I've heard that can be kind of well, I guess there's kind of two, like for the US in particular, that's partially the result of us kind of motorizing everything. So instead of like, you know, walking down to the grocery, everyone's driving everywhere, which kind of cuts you off more. I mean, depending on like, especially for cities. And also, I guess with everything going online, or with smartphones, it kind of cut off the need for more interaction. When I came to Poland, for a while, we were going to this group that, it was basically like an English speakers meetup, that we were meeting people that way. So we were doing some of that, but then that sort of got shut down because the person running it got too busy, or they got kicked out of. We were meeting up at the library, and the library decided to like just shut it down because they didn't want to have staff during that time or something. I don't know. And then the torch didn't really get picked up on it, so that kind of fell through. And this was all before the pandemic, and then I'm sure the pandemic just like increased this by a order of magnitude of people feeling cut off and isolated. So, um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm not as much of an insider to know how it compares in Poland versus the U.S. Though, I mean, I Poland does have the advantage that you can walk more places. I mean, I don't have a car here, and I don't feel like a second class citizen. Whereas I absolutely feel like a second class citizen in the U.S. not having a car. It really limits like what you're able to do. Uh, so by that aspect, there are a lot more people walking and just bumping into each other. So I guess it does have that going for it. But yeah, it's in fact I feel bad. I am going to reply more to emails of people who just kind of reached out for me, who just kind of like, if some of them, it kind of felt like a social thing, like they wanted to just kind of they liked the videos and just wanted to say hi and kind of connect. I I am not trying to ignore you if I haven't replied to you, and in fact, I really do intend to send a reply. It's just going to be later. It's just I'm not haven't been great keeping up with the emails. It tends to get swallowed up, but it's just a volume thing. So it's definitely not a like holier than thou thing. That's the whole reason I put up the email, so people can contact me if they want to. But yeah, I'd say that's the two things. Well, three things working against it: more being cut off more because of using the car for everything, and as opposed to like public transit and walking. Uh, having so many things move online, and the rise of smartphones. Yeah, because I remember that definitely had an alienating feel to it because I'm old enough, I've seen before and after, cell phones and smartphones. That see before, like if you were like on a subway or something, or just at a bus stop, nobody was talking to someone who wasn't there. Like, I mean, maybe they had a friend there, so uh, there'd be more incentive for people to strike up conversations. I mean, not always. A lot of people, sometimes they're just everybody be in silence, but there was more incentive, and there weren't people talking to each other, and now with smartphones, there weren't people just kind of doing their own thing on it. So it would cut off that kind of create a natural cutoff towards the people around you, and I think that was definitely a noticeable change. In fact, like when I think, so sometimes when I like look at movies from like the '90s and then from like 2000s and 2010s, I mean, if there's not much of a focus on technology, a lot of the things will look the same except phones, like cell phones, smartphones. That feels like the biggest difference, because I think that's made a huge change in sort of culture and society. So, and fortunately, that's some of the after effects of it. Okay, I might start getting pickier with the questions. Somebody's asking, besides Fortress Forever and Zombie Panic Source, what were some of your favorite multiplayer Source mods? I'm not sure if I ever kept up with how many there were. I mean, I remember I think it might have gotten the Source adaptation. There was a Gold Source one I played. It was like one side was vampire hunters, another was vampires. I bet somebody in the chat's going to know the answer. That one looked like it had potential. I didn't really get into firearms. That one was a little more on the realistic side for me to get into too much. Try to think of other source, gold source mods. I don't know. I never went. Yes, I'm not talking about Nosgoth. This predates Nosgoth by at least a decade. And it was probably a more complete game, to be honest. But similar. Yeah, I forget what the name of it was. Yeah, the thing with mods is I think I might be getting things off chronologically here, but it's like mods for certain games rose a whole bunch, but then at a point, once games start getting kickstarted, and you had a lot of indie studios have a platform where they didn't have to have a big publisher, they could just put it out direct on Steam, then that kind of things just exploded in terms of games. So there was kind of like less incentive to make mods. Not that people didn't stop making mods. I mean, they kind of went crazy for some games like Elder Scrolls. It might have been Vampire Slayer, is what I'm thinking of. But but it's like I just couldn't even keep up. And it's like, wow, here are all these full games that I could that look promising. I might as well try those out rather than hunt down mods where they might have great. Oh yeah, well, Zombie Master. I like that. I like Zombie Master. That one was fun. Although that's one where it depends on the level a whole lot too. Yeah, actually, I wouldn't mind doing this. That. Might be a fun one to do with the viewers. Maybe somebody in the chat knows what the maximum player count for Zombie Master is. Let's see. Okay, so I'm gonna try to get through some more questions. Ross, how do you organize your media, music, videos, etc. collection? Well, for videos, I don't have as many of those, so it's more of just kind of folders and general genre, so it's not so overwhelming. For music, that's one of my quests. Is like, well, on the disc, just to find files, it's just by broad genre than the band name. But that's not how I would play it. By play it, I'd be doing it by ID tags, where, I would want to put like the mood it has, because maybe one band has an album and like they have like a lot of different moods just in that same album. Well, I want to sort it by that sort of mood. And the hang up I kept getting from my music organization quest was to figure out, okay, what exactly are the moods that I want? Because it's more than just mood. Because you can have a song that sounds similar that has like 8-bit synth waves on it, or one that sounds like it's like from medieval times with the instruments they're using. And they might have a similar mood, but that instrument used is so different. And it's not just about, and the thing is, I don't want to have just like 1,000 different categories either. It's not about having like figuring out exactly what this is. Like again, like medieval calm music. It's more about like, how many can I lump together before like the difference is too jarring. So that the end goal would be I could just pick like this broad category, like, and then hit random play, and the music will more or less flow together. And you could kind of pick different themes. Like maybe one would be better for like racing music, or another would, like, I had an image in my head of like music that might be playing in a cafe from the future, or something like that. So that kind of encapsulate like maybe a wider variety. So it's not, so like the future cafe category, you're not going to have like real aggressive and fast music in that, but you might have stuff that's like a little more moderate, and maybe some could be a little more electronic, some could be more like rock or just kind of experimental, but it's not going to be we maybe don't want it too crazy, big. So figuring out all the categories, which is a very subjective thing, but just I haven't even seen good subjective categories that people come up with. It's if I could do that, then I could have great music organization. Unless something comes along accessible to the public for AI sorting, and it would need to be stuff that you could run on your own system, because I have all kinds of music that's not in any catalog. I mean, stuff like the Rama music, like you know, all sorts of game soundtracks that were never published. They're just extracted from the game, that sort of thing. You know, so if I could get good AI for that, I think someone might have emailed me about that. I need to double check it. It was from months back. But yeah, tying back to that earlier question, I'm actually not trying to take on new life goals at this point. If I could just kind of catch up with my current stuff, then that'll be more than enough. Okay. Oh yeah, this is a good question. I wasn't completely sure. What would your occupation be in a Fallout-style post-apocalypse? Yeah, I mean, I guess going back to me having good endurance, I mean, maybe something where you're traveling from town to town, that could have some use. You know, maybe delivering messages, or I mean, I mean, in the original Fallout, you can run caravans. You know, though that was pretty dangerous running the caravans. So I don't know. Like, plus I don't think I would be a very good trader, but you know, maybe I could like assist a trader, that sort of thing, where moving supplies or just something where, because I mean, aside from just like rote manual labor for something that can get you a meal, you know, I'm trying to think of like, yeah, I guess probably assisting caravans, because there's not a lot of opportunities in like what sort of professions do you have? Well, okay, I haven't played Fallout 4, but you know, I've played 1, 2, Tactics, New Vegas, and 3. So that's enough to get I mean, okay, you had the caravans and the traders. You had, I guess, like bounty hunters or slavers. You did have, like, in 1, you had the villagers that with the farming. I guess you had a few of these. I mean, the Brotherhood of Steel. That's sort of something you probably would need to be born into, or they would find you. I don't. I'm not sure my experience. Maybe I was saying I'm not sure my experience doing PC repair would be enough to be brought into the Brotherhood of Steel, but maybe it would be. Like they, uh, yeah, Caravan Guard, prospectors too. What were they prospecting for in Fallout? I don't remember that. Yeah, that's the thing that always struck me about Fallout is it's the same as Mad Max. Is that you could have this sliver of society. You could have this society operating like this for a small sliver of time, but there just isn't enough to be sustaining it that I was seeing. A scrap. Oh yeah, scrapper. Yeah, I could be a scavenger. Yeah, that might actually be right up my alley, because like you would want to travel a ways to find the good stuff and haul it back. So yeah, scavenger would probably be, yeah, just going through ruins and trying to find anything useful, that sort of thing. Yeah, I think I'd probably be a natural for that. Okay, so yeah, we figured out my profession. Right. Okay. We have one of these multiple questions. Okay, I'll go through them quick. Are you planning on making a video on Legend of Kyrandia 2? Maybe. Let's see. I've played it. It's good. Yeah, I mentioned the Red Hot Chili Peppers story. I'm afraid I'm not going to reveal that. That could still get made eventually. They'll be good for an animated. They'll probably be good for a 2D animated video, if I can ever afford help on that. Have I received any YouTube play buttons? No, I have not, but I don't care, so it's fun. Yeah, I think we established the silver play button isn't, it may not even contain any silver, or if it does, it's just like a flaking or something. So if that's the case, I don't care, you know? So it's, if I never get any the play buttons, then there's no problem. But again, if it was a block of silver, then yeah, I'd follow that up more. But oh yeah, well, okay, I don't have a number for you, but I'll mention this. They're saying how much of the movie is completed. There's going to be a lot more done on it this year, and my first thought was I can't really give a number because what I was thinking of, I saw this not long ago on old game installs, where you'll be installing and it's kind of going forward and going forward, and let's say it gets stuck at like 34%, and then one just kept hanging. It was there for like 20 seconds. I'm thinking, did the program stall? It did did it just crash and I just not seeing the error message, and then all of a sudden, bam, like 98%. Okay, done. Boom. So a lot of the progress of the movie can be like that because it's like if you're researching, like what percent of research is done? If you're trying to get something and you spend all day researching and you find some leads, but it's still not what you need. Well, was that a wasted day, or are you on the right path? And whereas once you're actually to the point where you're talking about like when you're animating things and you have this many sequences, well, that's more measurable. So it's in the nebulous zone, I'm afraid. It's like that 34% that's just hanging there, and you're not sure if it's doing anything. But I swear, a lot more progress is going to happen in the movie this year. I'm going to finish up this other stuff I'm doing, then the movie's getting months of work regardless. So regardless of whether, I'm hoping I can kind of balance that with editing help to keep getting videos out. But even if I can't, then the movie's still going to get months regardless. I'm willing to burn part of I have enough YouTube viewership that I can afford to burn some of it to get more of the movie made. So I'm going to do it. Let's see. Russ, what do you think is the most important thing for every person on the planet to consider at this strange point in time? But what's at the top of your list? Okay, well, I'll just give two. Well, one, like going back to the Ukraine conflict, nobody wins with nukes. Like, don't focus on what's right or wrong. Focus on what does not lead to us have. Right or wrong is a luxury. Whatever leads to not having nuclear escalation is the correct path. So even if that means injustice, like nobody, I'd rather have injustice and not have nuclear war than doing the right thing, if that even is which is very questionable, like what that is. But that leads to nuclear conflicts. So I'm not. In fact, I'm not even convinced like the right thing would. I think de-escalation is absolutely the priority for stuff like so. That's one thing, and the other thing I bring up is I think. Okay, here I mentioned Chris Hedges earlier. There's a quote of his I saw just like a week ago that I really liked, and I realized this is probably the reason I found out about him. Okay. Yeah. The other thing is we really do have finite resources on Earth, and I think we're overextended. So the sooner we come to terms with that, one way or another, the less pain we have in the future. And here's the quote by Chris Hedges I like. This is a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. I think he also won an award from Amnesty International. He used to work for the New York Times, but they got rid of him because he wouldn't stop writing the truth about what was happening in the Iraq War. So, okay. His quote is, wait, where is it? Yeah. As long as the earth is, yeah, this was in response to like our overextend, kind of what I mentioned in the New Beginning episode, like, how like a lot of the wildlife is gone and we're seeing like ecosystems collapse on some levels. As long as the earth is viewed as the personal property of the human race, a belief embraced by everyone from born-again Christians to Marxists to free market economists, we are destined to soon inhabit a biological wasteland. It would have been nice if I could have said it without stuttering there, but I share that view. Like, so many different ideologies, they still assume we have infinite resources, and we don't. So, and like unfortunately, this is kind of like me just shouting into the wind here, but you asked like the most important thing that I think that's up there. So, I love how he tries to grab the full spectrum there with that quote. So, okay. Yeah, let's move on. Okay, they're asking about the blind playthrough of Dark Souls. Oh, okay. Apparently there's a lot of backlash for not grinding out the way the developers intended. I was curious what your thoughts were on the attitude that you were wasting the opportunity to experience the game. Oh, the way it was intended. You said, imagine it was a place from admiration of the series. Well, different people want different things from games. Like, Dark, look, well, I was thinking like with Serious Sam, that's a challenge. That's a game I want to play like on a harder difficulty. And that's something where you can die many times in that, but if your skill level is really good, you might not die much at all. And it's an intense experience. I enjoy it, and it has like the sort of skills that I like. However, like I would not suggest playing Serious Sam on a hard mode for the average person if they're going to be overwhelmed by that. And I think it's the sort of thing with Dark Souls. Like the thing with Dark Souls is like it was feeling very fair and like a slower kind of paced experience, but it kind of felt like what I saw in the playthrough of Demon Souls, where until you get to the bosses, and then it's like the bosses, there is not much room for error, and you kind of have to figure out what's happening, and and the penalty for dying is kind of significant for me. Well, I mean, like at least from like the beginning, like the point from like where you respawn to get back to the boss or these enemies to deal with it. I guess, okay, here's a question. I'm not sure if it's even possible to verify this. In the history of Dark Souls, has anyone played it so that they were able to get through the bosses like the first time they played it? Like even like anyone? Like, because I have played games where I have gotten through the bosses the first time I played it. So, see, to me, the ideal boss fight, for my taste, is one that's close. One that like this guy brought you down to 10%, 5% of your health. You're thinking, oh god, but then you get him on that final blow or something like that, and that's tricky to balance for people. So if it feels like, if it feels like if it like, oh, maybe I died, but then I got the boss down to 20 and 10% health, and I realized I made some mistakes in the middle of that. Then I thought, oh yeah, well I can do this. I can do this. Let me try it again. So it felt like it was more on me. Whereas if it's stuff where you have to kind of figure it out, or you're or the game's designed for you to be dying multiple times. I don't know. I don't find that as fun. At least I'm trying to think. Or yeah, because I feel like even a game like Serious Sam, it's not designed for you to be dying multiple times. It's designed to throw overwhelming forces at you, and you have to just bring your absolute A game and for first person shooting to survive it. And if you do, you do survive. It's so again, the regular enemies kind of felt that way to me in Dark Souls, but the bosses didn't. And so, I mean, I get how some people, this is like a revelatory experience for them, like doing this grind and then getting better at it, and then they can overcome this stuff that seemed impossible. But it's like, I've had that experience with other games, and it's what that wakes my brain up and to thinking, wait a minute, I have to enjoy the grind for that to happen. So if I'm dying a lot on, again, I keep pulling Serious Sam as an example. If I'm dying a lot on it, but I feel like the fight's fair, well, then I'm still enjoying myself. It's like, damn it, I thought I had it. Like, okay, I'm just gonna have to go more to the higher ground this time, maybe try some different weapon. Like my brain's thinking of like what I can do differently, and I feel like I feel like I can still have this, but and I'm enjoying the gameplay, but different people are going to kind of enjoy different games, or gameplay styles. And Dark Souls, I don't think it would even be my favorite, but like, I figured out, yeah, there are I would need one of two things, I think, in order to enjoy Dark Souls. One could be to not have the enemies respawn every single time you save the game. I think that would have to be like a more deliberate act. Like you would go by the campfire and choose to respawn them or something. Or give me a quick save option. If it had one of those two things, I think I would be fine. So it doesn't. It's not balanced around that. It's meant for people who want this long grind. And the Dark Souls grind in particular wasn't fun for me. So why am I playing the game if I'm not having fun? I said it wakes me up. I feel like what I meant by that is if I'm grinding at something and I'm not having fun, but I'm doing it towards this longer goal, well, then I shouldn't be doing that in a game. I should be doing that in something real life, like that has like a real payoff. Like in my case, making a video, or maybe learning more of a foreign language, or developing a skill I want to have, or doing exercises. Like I mean that's what a lot of exercise is: a grind and a lot of repetition, so you get into a. So it's like if I'm doing that in a game, well then that's kind of, again, it wakes me up. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, what am I doing? Like if I'm going through this mental energy to just grind and I'm not enjoying myself for it, I'm just trying to get through this. Well, I should be doing that for a real skill. If I'm playing a game, I should be having fun. So it's that. I think. Whereas, like, if I enjoy the grind, I mean, like with the crew, I drove on pretty much every road in that game. So that would be a grind I bet a lot of people wouldn't want to do. I did it as just an excuse to see more of the scenery. So it just depends. I mean, I think that's the metric, and what a lot of the Dark Souls people don't get is that I bet I could find games, but like this, I bet a lot of the Dark Soul purists, I could find games that they would not want to play the legitimate way. Like the good games, like let's say some like Supreme Commander or Serious Sam, or let's see, Puzzle Agent, or I bet I could find something that they wouldn't want to play the legitimate way. That it's a good game, but if you're not into that, then you're not going to have a good time. So, and Dark Souls is kind of frustrating because I like the atmosphere a lot. I respect what they're doing with the combat, but it's like, I don't like that last mile. It sounds like Elden Ring might be better balanced for I was saying, Ross, but didn't you waste hours on those enemies in the Chosen? Yes, I did. And you know what? I gave up on the Chosen before I decided to make a game dungeon out of it. See, Game Dungeon takes it to another level because it's saying like, okay, let's get to the bottom of this, and I'm gonna make a spectacle out of this. So it's not just me doing this for fun now. Now it's something where, yeah, I'm suffering, but you will benefit from my suffering. so so it's like, oh, okay. And for Dark Souls, it's like I wasn't really planning to make a game dungeon out of it. I'm sure only 1 million people have made videos on it. This is stake territory. I don't think I'm gonna add anything in particular to it. So, uh, yeah, no, that is before I made the game dungeon. I gave up on it after a point. So. I thought the Chosen was faulty copy protection causing the damage scaling. That is going to be addressed in a follow-up. I don't want to spoil too much, but we will. I'm going to go Mythbusters on this. Okay, so we'll find out. We'll find out. Let's see. Okay, so are we for time? Okay, we're doing okay for time. If you had astronomical amounts of money and couldn't better the world with it, what would you buy for yourself? I feel like, I realized I had a thought on this. Like I couldn't verbalize until earlier, but now I realize what it is. This is the sort of question I would have had more answers for when I was younger. And I feel like as I've aged, it's almost like reinforced like to not even have these kinds of thoughts, like because all it would do is just depress myself. But so it's like I feel like I've become less imaginative in this way when I think about it. But yeah, I'm not sure. So if it's something only for myself, I mean, I guess I could have like a real fancy kind of estate, kind of like in the Black Mirror or the what Palace of Versailles kind of look to it. I think that would be kind of neat to just because it looks neat and have a grounds, and I could just go outside and have a run for it for exercise, that sort of thing. Let's see. Other things. Yeah. Okay. So the limitation here. This is not to better the world. It's just for fun. Well, I don't know if this would qualify or not, but I mean, for sure, I'd want more amusement parks. Although part of the fun is having other people there. So I guess I could have amusement parks at cost. It would just be like a nonprofit thing. You have to pay to get in, but that's just for maintenance and the staff and that sort of thing. So I'm saying buy the rights to Battleforge. No, I'd want to go bigger. Like I wouldn't want just one game. I would try to. Well, actually, let's see. Yeah. I get. Well, no, I don't know if that would count as bettering the world or not. I mean, that's like on the most minor level possible of bettering the world, but I would want to. I would want to like try to like have a camp. Yeah, I'll probably get lobbying efforts going for that would be the fastest way to do this. Just because software companies would be caught blindsided by this stuff. I would use the lobbying system to get to tighten consumer rights so that like you cannot be releasing software or like let's say creative unique works, creative works and not be away. But again, this would be bettering things. Yeah, I think if I just came in with just buckets of cash, paid lobbyists to do this, reached out to every senator, presented it as a consumer rights issue and a preservation issue, I bet we could have it passed within a year. I mean, it would. Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think of things that wouldn't better thing. Yeah, see somebody saying buy Microsoft. Yeah, that would improve. I could improve a lot of things then if I bought Microsoft, but that would be bettering again. Oh, I think stuff just okay. I guess I'd want like a full VR gym. So yeah, in addition to just go all in, like have kind of like a Ready Player One setup, and then have like sweat pads or stuff so that you can have an actual workout. Then uh, the industry would just lobby you back. Then yeah, they might, but they might get caught blindsided, and I might be able to do it in a way. I mean, they would lobby back, but then I could put up a lot of resistance, and if I have more money, then they could. But besides, it might not be worth the effort if it's already in the law and they know they have to do this for a while, because they don't lose their cash cow by having an end of life plans for games. They lose their cash cow by having loot boxes illegal, that sort of thing. So, okay. Ross, being rich is about making time the most precious resource. You get assistants, 100 editors, private chef, cleaning staff, chauffeurs. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So yeah, those are all good things. Yeah, that's true. I would get editors, and I would be able to afford someone who, well, who knows? Maybe I'll get lucky. There are one or two people who are looking promising on my editing gauntlet, which isn't done yet. But I warned everyone it was going to be a little bit more like the Hunger Games as far as the survival rate. Not because you're competing against each other, but because you're competing against my pickiness is the thing. So, uh, yeah, giant water slides, just over the top fireworks celebrations. What were some other things? Uh, yeah, I mean, I guess I could have like Trackmania style race courses the bound within the bounds of physics, and ones that you're not just going to instantly die if you don't get the turn right. Then could have fun stuff like that. I guess sort of theme parking the world more. Yeah, just I don't know if this would count too, but the stuff I talk about, just like having things like gargoyles and sculptures and statues everywhere. Oh yeah, one idea I had was if I was just fully loaded, get statues made, maybe of unusual things, and then just drop them. Don't even mention it publicly. Just drop them in like some of the most remote areas, like in Siberia or like in the middle of the jungle, like in the Congo or out in the desert out west, and just like leave them there for like off trail hikers to discover if they do discover it. I think there's some viral marketing for Fortnite where they did something like that, but they probably clued people in. I wouldn't clue people in. I would want to have like some modern discoveries for people. Uh, let's see. I'm trying to think of like other things. Well, uh, some I've already actually. Again, don't know if this counts as betterment. I put some money towards I paid someone who's helped me sort of port over an old kind of Linux theme for window blinds. But then I found out Windows Blinds doesn't have DPI scaling that works, or like it did, but it doesn't now. So but they're working on a version of it to get it working again. So maybe I'll be able to resurrect that sometimes. So yeah, I would commission some skins for sure. I would commission. Well, I would either commission or else fund a lot more art. I like art, so I don't know. It's something I would have to think about. But I realized I don't know if this is the sort of thing I should think about a lot about, because I'm never going to be in this scenario. But yeah, creating more time would be helpful. To get help with the dishes and cooking and uh, let's see what just cleaning. Yeah, uh, day-to-day chores. I probably, I probably, yeah, okay, well, I'll move on to more questions. This isn't the sort of fantasizing I like. I like the fantasizing I like more is about like, let's go through some dimensional portal. Now we're in some weird alien world or fantasy existence, and we're trying to find out what these runes on the tower mean, that sort of thing. So, um, here's a question for the chat too. If you were to pick a game character to slap for stupidity, who would you slap? And I'm not sure I have great answers to this, although I think I mentioned it before. A friend of mine definitely vocalized this a long time ago. It was either for Aliens versus Predator or Aliens versus Predator 2. He said like the main character for the Marine campaign, like every time he wasn't in control of him, he was just a complete moron, and it was really pissing off my friend. Like in every cutscene, he's just being a complete idiot. So okay, somebody's saying Nathan Drake. I haven't played the Uncharted series, so let's see. So I can't comment on that. Okay, I'm not trying to think of like ones that like. Well, okay, there is one character, but they're gonna get their own mention in part of a side video I have planned, especially if I can get editing help. So I don't want to give that away. Okay, somebody's saying the animals in black and white. Yeah. I played some of black and white. I remember it being an issue that. Okay, somebody's saying Pritchard from Deus Ex Human Revolution. Yeah, Pritchard was like, it's like he was more just, he wasn't really stupid. He was just a very disagreeable person. Like, he's just being really snippy at me, and but it's like he was coming through for the important stuff is what I remembered about Pritchard. Maybe I'm forgetting something. He's just like an obnoxious person to be around. That's not really a stupidity thing. Like that's just like, okay, shut up. We just just shut up kind of character. Uh, let's see. Sylvanas. Oh, okay. Well, Sylvanas was. I'm not overly familiar with everything she did post World of Warcraft. So I know Sylvanas' story from Warcraft 3 and the expansion, and I know a little, and I know like a little bit from World of Warcraft. So it sounds like I do know the dumbness levels on Sylvanas hit critical levels with that last cutscene. That yeah, one of the videos to give the YouTube dislike button its send off. Like that one. Okay, somebody say she's definitely top of the list. Okay, yeah. It sounded like the writing was getting pretty bad for. Yeah, boy, that it sounds like that cutscene in the story. See, I didn't have the context to know like how dumb things were getting with the story when I saw it for the. I don't even remember the name of the expansion. Of the latest World of Warcraft expansion, but it sounded like this had been building up for quite a while, and then like this was just the last straw. So, okay, somebody's saying Miller and Metal Gear Solid 5. Haven't played 5. I've only seen a playthrough for. Okay, so Micah from Red Dead Redemption 2. Haven't played the protagonist from Deponia series. I was getting vibes of that a little bit, so I can believe that. I've only seen just a little bit of Deponia. Everything post Cataclysm 2010 kind of wrecked her previously stated motives. Yeah, like I'm only sort of up to the story with up to Wrath of the Lich King. Like I played some of it on an emulator, and that's as far as I got. And the rest I've just seen like a cutscene or two from that. Yeah, I mean the stuff I know is just so broad. Like in Cataclysm, I know a big dragon wrecked things, and then like at some point there was some plague that they tried to spread even more, like on purpose on the undead faction, and then Mr. Pandaria, they're Pandarians, and like goblins are faction. It's like the most bare bones stuff after that. So. Yeah, yeah. Chat is delayed on the stream because OBS was a train wreck this time for the chat. So the chat it's not the delayed. It's that they're being chopped off from the bottom and the sides. So sorry about that. Well, I'll for sure try to fix it next time. Figure out what the hell's going on. Your classmate from Jedi Academy who turned evil 30 minutes into the game. I forgot, man. My memory, I've played through. My memory is hazy on Jedi Academy. That might be one for me to replay. Yeah. Actually, come to think of it, that your your classmate in Fable, I remember bugged me. Yeah. Like in Fable, okay, they're sort of talking down. She's sort of talking down to you like the whole game, calling you farm boy, everything. I'm just like, all right, whatever. But then it gets to the point where in the game you have to face off against her in the arena, and this is like before this giant spectacle, giant crowd, and what you're supposed to do, you have two options. You can either fight her because you're in a gladiatorial arena, or she says like, okay, farm boy, now do as I say, and like you're supposed to cooperate with her and like kind of defy the rules. And I'm thinking, what, okay, we're in this situation now and you're still insulting me like now? Like, no. And so I didn't, I think I ended up hitting an exploit when I played it where I hit her, but then she ended up getting killed by some trap, like some spinning blades or something like that. So I didn't take the karma loss from it. But story-wise, it's as though I killed her. But just like, no, you should have known. But if you should have said something like, all right, I know I've been hard on you, but like, this is life and death. We need to cooperate. If she had said something like that, I've been like, okay, I'll go with her. But it's like, no, you're still insulting me now? Why should I be, why should I help you? I mean, the rules are, like, when I say you have a choice, those were not the arena rules. It was, I forget the details, but I remember that would have been very unconventional for you to like defy the arena rules and not fight each other. So somebody's saying Maggie Chow and David Sex to try to kill JC in hand-to-hand combat, despite not augment. I forgot about that. Yeah, Maggie Chow it just kind of felt like it just wasn't thought through as much. I think for, to want to slap a character, you want to like, it has to be like repeated stupidity. And it's just like, it's like making the plot painful, I think, to really rise to the occasion. Okay, I haven't played Hitman 2. The first Hitman 2, excuse me. Or I haven't played either one, but I think that's who they're referring to. Yeah, the chat's about 8 lines behind underneath where it's displaying. Yeah, I'm sure there's more. I'm having trouble thinking of it. It's one of these things where it's probably going to come to me like 3 months from now. So, okay, I should keep moving on. I have not watched Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. I'm familiar with a few Beach Boys songs. They're all right. They're not really my thing exactly, but I don't hate it either. It's like, if it's playing, it's fine. I guess it's good for surfing, if you're having surf music, But I don't know Pet Sounds. Okay, somebody's asking about the equivalent of Game Dungeon for music. I don't know about that, but I imagine someone like that exists out there. So you can mention that in the chat if you know about something like that, and it'll show up a few minutes from now probably. Let's see. I think I answered this earlier and I forgot. Which game stuck in IP hell would you most like to see get out for a sequel? Oh, ones that are already stuck. Yeah, not redoing, but oh man. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think what I mentioned before is like ones that wanted to reboot would be like the Messiah, like Messiah or Quarantine, but ones that are just sort of stuck. Maybe Castlevania. That's not really IP hell. That's more just Konami just sitting. Yeah, I think I meant to mention that with all these acquisitions, I kind of hope, you know, as many problems as I have with Microsoft, I feel like if they bought Konami, that would only be a positive thing at this point. You know, the that would because I would love to have more Castlevania platformers, like or maybe take another try at the 3D stuff. Yeah, I don't know if I'm like sold on the formula for Shadows of Dark. Was it Shadow? That was the newer 3D one, Shadows of Darkness. But I maybe see some more experimentation with it, or uh, you definitely try to get more like the groundbreaking Castlevania music back in the game. I'm not expecting them to outdo Symphony of the Night, but come on. I mean, Castlevania series has a really good track record with the soundtracks for the old stuff. They could try to. Yeah, I'd like to see. I'd like to see the Castlevania license handled the way the Sonic license is. Sonic, they just hand it out, or Warhammer, they just hand it out to anyone. So, yeah, like they're not all gonna be good, but like, yeah, let's keep the train going. You know, Lords of Shadow. Thanks. Okay, I'm seeing multiple votes for Command and Conquer. Or yeah, that's one that could probably use some more help. Yeah, that one. Boy, Diablo Immortal sure did EA a favor by drawing the heat off their mobile Command and Conquer game. I've forgotten about that, but the Diablo Immortal reveal was so it outdid it. So that just took away all the attention off of them. Yeah, I forgot about that mobile one. Oh yeah, Dungeon Siege. Yeah, I found out on PC Gamer. Yeah, apparently there's a new Dungeon Siege game coming out that's based off of NFTs, and it's like voxel graphics, and the trailer showed almost nothing, and it sounds like they're gonna just they're hoping for the users to sort of make the game. I'm not sure. It didn't sound promising at all. Yeah, but I would love another shot at Dungeon. Although that's a little misleading because it's not. It's like I said in the video, the Dungeon Siege IP. I don't even care about that. It's like the formula. You don't need the IP to make a great Dungeon Siege game. You just need to not call it Dungeon Siege, and not have the Krug or whatever whatever the few specific enemies they had were. You know, just a party-based action RPG that's just all about the combat. I think it would have a cult following if they did it right. Yeah, so I'm not encouraged by the. Oh yeah, somebody's saying you don't need a Castlevania IP to make a good Castlevania. That is true. That's true. You are correct. But so yeah, I hadn't thought. See that skipped my thought because some of the old Castlevania games are done so well that I forget that. But you're right. You could just get some of get some of the talent or the people following in the footsteps of that kind of talent. Like, see, it's weird. I tried playing some of what was the Bloodstained, and like the atmosphere felt really different to me than like the older Castlevania. Like it just didn't click with me the same way. Like it maybe I didn't get far enough into it. Like I feel like other games have had more that, like, okay, totally different setting, like with Blasphemous. Yeah, that has much more of like a Spanish folklore or Catholicism theme to it. But that one has the feel of a Castlevania game to me more than like Bloodstained did. And that has but that has one of the original creators. So I'm not like trying to knock them. I mean, a lot of people like it. It's just that didn't feel like it to me. Whereas I want that like kind of gothic vampire experience, or, going up against, monsters everywhere, that sort of thing, and just really, really kind of cool thematic music. Yeah, and I feel like Blasphemous kind of checked off those boxes more, despite being totally different setting. Okay, I'm getting pretty hungry. I'm gonna try and get a little more picky on the questions or have shorter answers. Yeah, okay, I'll mention this. Somebody's saying, do you have any very specific random recollections that seem to be etched into your memory for no particular reason? Yeah, but this made me think of something else. Geez, I have a text file on my computer somewhere, but I don't know where it is. Something else I thought of, like, I almost was like toying with the idea of making a video of this, but it's like too nebulous in my head for it. The idea is, I'm someone who like really likes, who can really get into like the atmosphere or the environments of places, and they can be wildly different. And sometimes it's just like really small things that give me like a really nice vibe. Like, okay, like for example, like some of the scenes in Echo really gave me that feeling, like this kind of endless palace feel to it. Like, yeah, this is kind of, or like I've seen some sort of like, well, actually here in Poland, when I visited Warsaw, yeah, I'd recommend checking out the university library. So a local there that my wife was friends with, she gave us sort of a mini tour of it, and it's neat. The architecture, it has like a lot of this like rusted copper, but has a lot. It's very tall, very interesting architecture, and on the roof, it has like these whole gardens to it that it just creates this. But like this, it gave me a similar feel to the Lord's Labyrinth from Path of Exile, except it more alive. So I was just thinking, and I was just thinking of maybe making like a compilation of just like different environments that I really find just kind of invigorating to me. It taps something. People talk about, like the most important thing in life or the meaning in life or something. For me, I feel like just experiencing some of these environments, that's certainly part of it for me. So that's part of the reason I'm so into VR, is because it like really, it opens up so many doors with that. But I'm trying to think of like other environments that really create this like, really kind of create their own mood to it. Well, again, growing up in Virginia, like forested mountains, there would be very impressive nature places I've been to. Where you kind of have like sort of like a rocky cliff face and a stream, and then a bridge across it, but it's in like a bit of a forested valley. So like if you're there in the morning, it just looks, it's like it might be something out of a fantasy movie with how it looks. I'm a real sucker for that sort of thing. So I try to stoke those flames in my head as much as I can, like, but I can forget about it. And I think that's part of the reason I like being near forest, is because it gives me a certain mood from that. But it can be all kinds of different things. Like even certain airports can feel like, well, I think somebody might know this. In the movie version of Eon Flux, which I thought was so-so, but the setting for it, it definitely feels like this futuristic area that they had good scouting for that. I forget what the name of the place is. Somebody in chat might know it, but I figured that might be kind of like a fun side video. The problem is I haven't kept track of all these places, but I might get better at that more. Okay, more questions. Any chance you could release the modified maps used in Freeman's Mine? Yeah, I would need to ask Toby about it. I think he did all the map modifications. Well, there hasn't been too many for. I mean, there was the dam one, and there was like the one by the where you go back behind that barn. I mean, the one where you shoot the Vortigaunt, that's not really worth it. I mean, there's not much change. It's just sort of values for it. But yeah, I can see if he's up for releasing that. If so, I could just make a post on it. You can download it. And they're saying Civil Protection's 15th anniversary is later this month. That makes me sad that I haven't done more. But I hope to redeem myself with the movie. Anything planned for it? No, and you're wrong. Civil Protection came out in November, I think, of 2006. See, the thing is, it was back then, YouTube wasn't a big thing, and that wasn't the ideal way to release videos. And I think you had like 240 resolution maximum or something. I forget. So, no, it came out on the website, Civil Protection, the Blogspot, before YouTube. So, no, I'm not big really on anniversary. I might be more. Well, I do like. Here's the thing. I do like celebrations and I do like festivities, but for me, an anniversary is just a reminder of how much I haven't gotten done, and that's not something to celebrate. That means I need to get back to work. Is what that makes you feel like. But again, I'm optimistic, so I'm really hoping to like turn things around. With keeping my fingers crossed, and the editing helps. So we'll see. I'm going to skip some more questions. Plans for nuclear war? I don't really have any. I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess maybe, I guess my only plans would be like because of my position, maybe do an SOS out to the fan base. And maybe somebody has a place that, has a fallout shelter or, again, South America might be the better option. Just something south of the equator that's more likely to get less fallout, because you don't have a lot of good options. Yeah, and even then for the fallout shelter, hope it doesn't turn into not to spoil too much, but what was the name of that movie? Something Cloverfield Lane. Hope it doesn't. That movie's about these people locked in a bunker, and I'll just say things kind of escalate. And hopefully it wouldn't be like that. And somebody's a high school biology teacher. They had something where they were talking about the vaccine. And it sounds like he stepped on some landmines with this. But if I'm reading this right, it sounds... Yeah, my thoughts on well, first off, I am not going to get into any specifics on that, because I've heard that YouTube channels can actually get taken down if you say the wrong thing about this, which what my basic thought on that is that a nuanced conversation on vaccines and the pandemic, it might, unless you really know what you're doing, it sounds like that's impossible on YouTube. And for me in particular, that's just not worth it for me to we're talking about like we're talking about medical knowledge and not like something like game preservation, where it'd be more where I could maybe kind of tiptoe around that to have a good to have a nuanced conversation about it. But I mean, my medical knowledge is what I learned in high school and some first aid, and I maybe know a little bit more about sugar than the average person. I think that's about it. So I wouldn't contribute much to that, but uh, yeah, from what this guy was saying, again, you can go to the Reddit page where people ask the questions if you want to see the full thing. I'm just kind of summing it up here, but he's saying, well, it sounded like he was trying to teach critical thinking in his biology class, and that's not his job. That's for the critical thinking class, which doesn't exist. So, yeah, I don't pretend to know what's best for education. That sounds like a whole can of worms that you need a lot of background, I think, with children and teaching. However, one thing I feel fairly confident about saying, I might have mentioned this before in the chat, like if I was going to change education curriculum, I would make room one way or another for a critical thinking class, and it would be ongoing. You know, like how with like math and English and history, you know, as the students get older, they can handle more mature topics or more complex ones, that sort of thing. It would be like that. So you start off with like the real easy stuff, at, at grade school level, and then work your way up to the more advanced things for trying to discern. Like, and by critical thinking, it would sort of be like just a combination of like logic and truth telling. Like, okay, for like a base. Well, hey, this is something that they do for like the actual police academy. This is like a real basic version of it. Let's say you have two witnesses and they're each saying something different. Well, and these aren't people who are against each other. It's just that eyewitness testimony is like notoriously unreliable. It's just, you've probably seen this with me. They just remember things incorrectly. Or they thought they saw something different. So what they do is, like, say you have two and they give different details. What do you put in your report? Well, I mean, you give their accounts, but what do you put, like, the overarching report? You put the stuff that both sides agree on. Like, so if there was a bank robbery and there's a lot of confusion as to how it went down, but they both say the getaway car was red, you should that's probably worth passing on to the detectives, that sort of thing. So that would be like a more basic level. And that's where people are trying to tell the truth. If one side's not trying to tell the truth, or maybe both sides, like they mentioned earlier from the I'm CIA user, if both sides are trying to lie, well, then that gets much more complex with how you go about trying to discern what's happening. That's what, like, I'm only going to go so far with like trying to figure out what's going on with Ukraine, because it was starting to feel like a research paper just trying to figure out what was happening. So I'd rather let someone else sift through it, you know. But I think that would be a use. And also, some skills in high school, depending on what profession you go into, they become totally useless, or almost. I mean, you might be able to draw on some. It's not. You still want to educate a populace, but in practical value. If that's not in your field, it doesn't really carry over. Whereas critical thinking could carry through the rest of your life, in almost any profession. It's like, let's say you want to be a car mechanic, and you think like this guy's like lying to you about what the problem is. Like, oh, I bet, like he says he worked on it. He says he didn't mess with it, but you think he messed with it. It's like, well, you can check for signs to look for. Or you want to be a hairdresser, and the person you're renting the place from, you think they're you think they're lying to you about the condition of the building or something that you're working in. This can extend to anything. Like, so it's like trying to divine truth, I think. uh, from what you're being told. I think it's kind of what I mean by critical thinking. Um, it well, someone's saying it already exists. It's called philosophy. Well, this would be a little more focused with philosophy. I think this would, because philosophy also, yeah, I mean, yeah, that could fall under critical thinking. I guess I'm thinking more of like trying to discern: is someone telling the truth? Is someone lying? Is someone they're exaggerating? Is someone maybe that they had a fever dream and they think it's real, like they believe it, but it's probably not. Like just show all these methodologies for like trying to take your best guess at, in all sorts of different scenarios. I think that would be a I think that would be a use. I think that would kind of not fully, but help inoculate populations against disinformation. You know, if you're someone who's worried about something like 1984, where like you know the state controls everything and puts out propaganda and like the tell lies or truth. This is how you would inoculate against that: is teaching your entire huge chunks of your populace to be able to look through basic lies, you know, and, and again, it's not just lying. There's all sorts of different scenarios where you're not sure what happened. I mean, you could show how statistics can be misleading, you know, or some statistics are not, and there's just so many angles you could. I think it's enough that it could become a permanent part of like a high school, like a K through 12 education, you know? And I think it would have a lot of benefits for individuals and society because it could help everyone make better decisions, you know? Yeah, they're saying logic used to be teach to detect fallacies and such. Yeah, I didn't have an option of a logic class until I was in college. Um, but I mean, this is the sort of thing that scales really well. I mean, you can start at just like the very basics for little kids and just gradually introduce more complex concepts. Okay, more questions. So yeah, I think critical thinking is important, but not sure we're gonna get it in the education system. So I haven't followed what's been happening with the Steam Deck. As for potential improved aspect of gaming I care about, the increased Linux support, and there's something else I'm keeping a bit of a secret because it's going into this video that is taking me too long, but I'm still gonna make it, so. Have you ever been in a fight before? I haven't, sort of yes and no. It's like, depends on how you wanna look at it. The only fight I've been in like 100% all in, felt like I was fighting for my life was when I was 4 years old. And I apparently just beat the hell out of this kid that was like twice my size because he took my ball. But I was at such an age where that was like the end of the world for me. See, that was one where it was just like absolutely nothing held back. Like just you know, just pure unbridled rage. And see, even fights, most fights, you're not putting absolutely everything into it. In order to do that, it's usually like a life or death situation. And I was young enough that emotionally, that's how I was interpreting this. But I mean, I've had scuffles with people where it's kind of like, yeah, we were both pissed off at each other, but we both also didn't want to get expelled from school. So it's kind of like we were just sort of getting it out of our system a little bit. It wasn't like we were like absolutely ready to kill the other person. It was just those we just kind of each other person just got kind of bruised up, and then we just kind of some fights just sort of flare up a little bit and then they're over. It was more like that. In middle school, I had a standoff with this bully that well, we didn't fight, but we were both just ready to. And he probably would have kicked my ass too. He was stronger than I was, but I didn't care. I forget even what it escalated over. But this guy was just, he was a real prick. And I was ready to go at it. And I just didn't care. But however, I said I took school more seriously than I should have. I knew a fight could lead to you getting suspended or expelled. And I think he knew it too. And so that's the only, so it just kind of, it ended up being an anticlimactic standoff, like out in the hall. Like, so I'm trying to think of another one. Yeah, there was I might have told this story already. This one wasn't really a fight, but I mean, it could have turned into one. Like in high school, I remember I'd been catching up on work, and I had done like an all-nighter or something. I was real low on sleep and was just in a really kind of grouchy mood. And I remember I was staying after class for just to catch up on some artwork. And I went back into the supply closet to get something like clay or something. And this one kid that had been bugging me, it's kind of funny because I was really good friends with his older brother. But this younger brother, he was just sort of kind of antagonizing me off and on throughout the year. I don't even remember why. I guess he was just sort of looking for trouble. But I was back there in the supply closet, and then he comes in and he just starts talking trash. I don't remember what it is. And like, I just remember not even thinking, but I was, again, sleep deprived, so not in the mood for this. I just backhanded him across his face, like just the bam, like just once. I just said, shut up, like real loud. And his look was like half anger, half fear, but he stopped and that was it. And that was, so it was more just me not having much impulse control at the time, but that ended it. And also it was in private, so there was, again, we were both back in the supply closet after school, so there was like only one or two people in the art classroom anyway. So it didn't, there wasn't a lot for, I think the teacher wasn't around at the time. Like they stepped out because it was after class. But the best part of this story is I found out later, one of my best friends, that, again, I may have mentioned this already. I found out from one of my best friends that he also got in a completely separate incident. Like I had no knowledge of this at the time. Got in an incident with the same kid where this kid pissed him off so much, my friend stabbed him in the head with a pen. And the kid had to go to the nurse. And he says he doesn't know what happened. He says he must have just told him that he slipped or something because he didn't get in trouble for it. And I realized this isn't the only time this happened with one of my friends from high school. Was when similar thing where this kid came, we were just, I was talking to another friend of mine, and this kid that sometimes just hung out with me, I mean, not with me, sometimes would just hang out with us at lunch. We weren't really good friends with him, but he just sort of tagged along. He was like a little annoying, but it wasn't that bad. But he came in and was like trying to tell us that he saw this documentary about how the moon landing was faked, and saw this evidence, and I just started like laughing, and he started saying something like, it's not very considerate that, it's kind of inconsiderate of you to like laugh at me. I'm trying to explain to you what I saw, and I was about to explain why there was like so much evidence the moon landing happened, and before I did, my other friend came up and he's like, "Hey guys, what's up?" I said so I just immediately said like he thinks the moon landing was fake, and then my friend just goes and backhands him, like across the back of his, not backhands him, like smacks him across the back of his head, just says idiot. So I just laughed at him. My friend just backhands him, and this other kid, I slapped him across the face, and my friend stabbed him in the head with a pen. So it's like, It's like we had the same instincts, but I was like good cop, bad cop kind of thing. So it was kind of funny. And these were just, yeah, it really was kind of like a good cop, bad cop relationship. Just by coincidence. Okay, more questions. I'm getting pretty hungry. Oh yeah, well, this is a good question. They're saying apparently Elden Ring has an unsteady frame rate, which I didn't know about. And they're saying poor graphics and draw distance of Pokemon Legends Arceus. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Um, are you generally more forgiving of a janky game if it's fun to play? And they're talking about, let's see, if the game lacks PC settings, are you liable to be more forgiving of its technical shortcomings? Yeah, but it's a little mixed because I hold brand new games to different standards. Like I look at brand new games now like they're just like late betas. Like I just assume there's a patch coming. Like it is not done. So, well, there's two aspects of that. So if the game's all janky, it's like, no, I'm not going to be forgiving of it, but I'm probably not going to play it now. Maybe I'll play it in 3 years and then I'll be forgiving of it because then I know it's had a few rounds of patches that that it might fix the problem. So I got to evade the problematic aspects entirely. But the other aspect is, say the problem is just mostly with performance. Like the game's stable and everything, but it's sluggish. Like it's taking everything from modern systems. Well, if you wait a few years down the line and can get an upgrade, well, then maybe you can just brute force the problem. So yeah, it's not optimized for the standards of today, but maybe it runs just great 10 years from now. So, so for problems like that, I'll just wait, you know. But say it's been a long time and it's still janky and it has issues, but it's fun to play. Yes, but some things can still bug me. Like I'm thinking of the crew, like how I was mentioning how you could just not maintain a stable frame rate in that game. Like it was, the crew 2 was much smoother, but the first one, it's like it would just, the frame rate would just kind of stutter and go back. It would just kind of go back and forth between smooth stutter, smooth stutter. It gave me very mixed feelings about it. Like I really liked it when it was good, and it really annoyed me when it was bad. So that's probably why I got a game dungeon. But yeah, I heard was it the Final Fantasy VII remake had stuttering too. I don't know if that one's been fixed also, but you know, or yeah, that's the whole reason I'm waiting on Cyberpunk is they're not done. They're still fixing it. So, you know, that's the. I am honestly floored that that some games get community patches because they're somehow able to fix problems for these games without having the source code. I'm thinking, how do you even like that has to be on a level that like I just don't understand. That you've got to be you gotta be pretty accomplished computer science guy, I think, to be able to pull that off. Like, and it's more than a few games that have received community patches and just they never had the source code. I mean, I could understand a few things if it was like if this is something like you could fix in like the config settings, but like once you have, I don't know. And as for draw distance, I absolutely do like I like a draw distance so far. I don't know. I forget such a thing exists. However, I am tolerant of it, except for like the real early PlayStation and Nintendo 64 era games, where it's just like you're like, especially if it's like a racing game, and it's like you can't even render like I'm not good at estimating close distances. It's like let's say half a football field or a quarter of a football field. I mean, these were just like so glaring, the pop up, that it's just like, good God. So those are kind of rough. Like the real early PlayStation and Nintendo 64 era ones where the draw distance is just popping in like all the time. But anything else I'm tolerant of, but I draw distance is something I absolutely like to throw resources at. You know how shiny how the reflection of the puddles from ray tracing, or like the clarity of the shadows compared to a little bit blobbier thing. That doesn't. I don't care so much about that, but like draw distance. Oh yeah, I notice that does a lot to pull me into the game world. So. Yeah, someone's mentioned Gothic 3 for the community patch. That's when I was thinking, did Gothic 3 have source code or a software development kit or anything, or did they just have all these hooks and they figure out what the hell it's doing and intercept? I mean, it just floors me when that happens. Like I don't know how they do that. Like especially when they're like replacing DLLs. I mean, like what? I don't know enough about computers to know how they do that. Is this guy the Bizarro World, Ross? I don't. You know, I actually know about Bizarro from when I was a kid. I never really got into comics, but I read a couple of them, and some of them were Superman with Bizarro, and I thought Bizarro was interesting. This was very weird. Like, I'm not sure why they think I'm Bizarro Ross, though. Uh, okay, I'm skipping some more questions now. And the information on beans is outdated. I haven't eaten beans in a long time because my skin's been reacting to a whole lot of different foods. And so legumes are not on the good list. Like the diet I'm on now is similar to keto, but it's like a little more restrictive. Like it cuts out nuts. Like I mean, chicken, like sweet potatoes, mushrooms, cucumber, squash, pumpkin. It's yeah. I think I mentioned before that was it the Rob Stewart YouTube channel. He had a lot of advice on that for like what foods to eat. I I think I'm not supposed to eat onions, but I have some of them anyway. Not a lot, just because I like onions a lot. Oh yeah, how do you know whether someone can only learn the hard way or has just ADHD or both? Oh well, no, you can figure that out. You just need better presentation. Like say it's somebody who can learn, but they're too ADHD to like pay attention. You need something that really gets their attention. Like so, if it's like a video that's like kind of fast paced, it shows like what happens, then and then they don't do it. Then they get the message. Then they know. Then they're not someone who needs to learn things the hard way. They just had trouble grasping the information. They weren't patient enough for the information or something like that. So yeah, you just one of the example. I'm thinking of like random examples here. One is there's a Beavis and Butthead episode where they're watching a video on driver safety that they're showing to the high school students before they get their license, and they're showing dangers like drunk driving and unsafe driving. And so they're showing all these gory accidents of the people happening to. So yeah, that'll probably get people's attention if you're doing something like that. Or another thing I was thinking of, there's a training video for Wendy's, I think from like the 80s or 90s, it might have been early 90s, where they end up like having a rap video in the middle of it. And like it's bizarre, but it's funny. Here, maybe I'll put that in the things to link to. So it, So they're giving the lesson, but you're also getting a rap video for how to flip burgers at Wendy's. Um, so yeah, I guess so. Yeah, if you're trying to tell the difference, it's the presentation. Make it real easy to follow, engaging, that sort of thing. Yeah, yeah. Somebody's saying there was a forklift instruction. I'll link to that one too. Although the forklift instruction video, that one is so over the top. I'm wondering if that was actually even a real thing or if it was like intentionally meant as a parody. I mean, yeah, yeah. I think that one might have been a parody. I mean, we're talking like. Well, I don't want to spoil it. That one gets bloody though. I'll just warn you about that one. I'll link to that one also. People are talking about all sorts of sanctions on Russia and block. How do you think it will affect the piracy all over the world? If there's a precedent taking away your game, yeah, well, I mean, it'll of course incentivize piracy. I just hope the sanctions aren't anything. I just hope it doesn't do anything too critical, like for supplies that people in Russia need. Like I think I saw like one article where they were saying that like this might affect fertilizers, and like apparently I didn't know this. Apparently Russia makes a lot of fertilizers, and so this could affect actually regions in like Africa and South America that might be depending on those for crops. So this could have a chain reaction. That's what I'm saying. Like what's right and wrong, it's not a simple question. It's something like this. It sounds like there's all sorts of dynamics at work. So, but would it make people more aware of how fragile the ownership of games is? I'd say probably not, because I imagine the Russians probably had a better awareness of that anyway, because plus a lot of games might be like slower to come to Russia, which would incentivize piracy historically anyway. So I think if it was reversed, then that might create awareness. But like if a lot of like the U.S. European regions, um, like got cut off from a lot of online games, and then that would and sales of games that might wake more people up. Although I think there was some waking up, or at least I hope so. I think it was like last chat. Didn't Nintendo like shut down their store, and then that's gonna like delist a whole bunch of games, or maybe made some unplayable, and then Nintendo's just like leaving their fan base like blowing in the breeze. Yeah, I hope that wakes some people up. Now the good news is, I want to say almost every single game from Nintendo has been is possible to emulate. I'm not sure. I sometimes check like how like the compatibility list of emulators to see how they're doing. I mean maybe maybe not. So the practical. I think not many Nintendo games are actually at risk of disappearing, but in terms of consumer rights, they're just raking people over the coals. It sounds like so. Uh, that's exactly the kind of dynamic I want, where the games themselves are actually safe, but consumers are getting a hard lesson. You know what I mean. So that's the yeah that yeah. Hopefully, I'm not optimistic, but I hope more awareness comes from that. But I guess this whole conflict is good at like drawing attention off of less important topics, and I get the game preservation of game preservation. I admit is definitely a less important topic than what's happening lately. So I mean, as much as I care about it, I still keep perspective. Okay. I didn't see I missed this question. What was your best game experience of last year? I think I mentioned before. I think maybe Serious Sam 4 or what? I forgot the name of it. That platformer, that 2D one that was like a 90 Outrun? No, not Outrun. Though Outrun 2006 is a fantastic game too. How the hell am I forgetting the name of this? It was this Hunt Down. That was it. That was very solid. But I'm not always playing like brand new stuff either. But oh yeah, this was a longer question. They were basically asking if I could transfer my consciousness into a computer, but it leaves my body behind. Would I do it? But I'm being transferred into a game, and so I can't interact with real people. Though it seems like multiplayer games you'd be able to, but for the sake of the argument, so I mean basically you could talk to NPCs, but that's not gonna do much, because they have their scripts. Would I take it? No, but maybe if I'm like getting real old, like I take it if I've like maybe in my late 80s or something like that, where I don't have a lot left anyway, then I might do it, which I think is literally a plot point in one of the Jumanji movies. I won't. How's your British accent? And he wants me to say, I believe that the Queen should seek audience with the King at 3:00. Okay. This is just on the fly, no prep work. I believe that the Queen should seek audience with the... Oh, that's bad. I believe that the Queen should seek audience with the King at 3:00. No, damn it. Because there's different British accents. I believe that the Queen should seek audience with the King at 3:00. And that might be about as good as it's going to do on the fly. If I practiced and was listening to it a lot, I could probably do a lot better. That's the sort of it takes training, to do different accents. Oh, they're saying that's Australian. Damn it. Okay, I screwed up. Okay. I believe. Well, okay, let me just read something else. So basically, I believe that the Queen should seek audience with the King at 3:00. Okay, that's another variant. So I think that one's less Australian and more British. Oh yeah, they're saying that it looked like it caused Ross pain to do it. Some voices, it just works better if my face. I don't know. It has to do maybe with the vocal muscles connected. I don't know. Yeah, like doing Mike's voice for self protection, I kind of have to strain a bit. But okay, I'm getting pickier and pickier of the questions. Okay, someone's asking about like sort of a navigation, like sort of a tutorial for the UI on like different operating systems. I care less about that. More like I care more about the end destination. And to me, the end destination isn't good enough. Okay, skipping more questions. Do you think we'll ever reach a point where we can just play any game on a PC without encountering problems with compatibility, like screen tearing, no controller support, FPS going all over the place, and so on? Any game, no. Not in our lifetime. I mean, they're basically. I mean, look, Microsoft. Most PC gaming is happening on Windows. That could change, but it's like it's still Windows is not the bastion of stability. And Linux it can be, but it's Linux is much kind of Wild West still for like getting things working. And if we're like this decades into gaming, I mean, I'm not sure we're ever going to see it stabilize. That doesn't mean you can't have a lot of games that just work right off. But actually, I think we've seen a reverse for brand new games. Yeah, like I said, I treat new games like they're just betas. So yeah, sorry. That doesn't mean we can't have improvement and lots of workarounds that become more and more standardized. But no, sorry. Okay, I think I've answered this before. They're asking why do I change stuff in Freeman's mind with the maps? It's because something bugged me about the original that I really wanted to do something else, and now I have that option with Freeman's Mind too. There's someone talking about total conversion mods I can think of that stuck with me. I haven't played a lot of total conversions tend to take a lot more work. Um, I mean, they weren't necessarily my favorite, but some notable ones were like the Nerim mod for Oblivion. And I think they did. A, I think that same group did one for Skyrim, which I haven't played yet. A lot of people are mentioning that Castlevania one. I think it's like it might have been the Doom engine or something like it, where it's like first person view. I realized the stuff I most want these kind of conversion mods of are ones of games that are like either top down or isometric, and I want them on the ground level. Like they have impressive worlds, and I want to see them. Like Grand Theft Auto 1 and 2, I'd like to see. And what was it? The London 1969 one. I'd love to see a total conversion of that so that would play more like the modern Grand Theft Auto games. You know, you keep all the voice. I mean, you'd have to adapt more stuff because the cars would probably just been like top-down sprites, so you have to replace those, that sort of thing. Yeah, Grim Dawn, that was another one I was thinking of. So somebody's mentioning that in the chat, and it'll show up in 8 lines or so. Yeah, that world looks amazing. I don't know if, but you probably want to adapt the gameplay for that. I think there might be a camera mod for Grim Dawn, but it might be rough kind of navigating with, because really, if you're on ground level, you kind of want controls where you can just kind of push forward and they'll go that direction. I wouldn't want to play it at high difficulty this way, but I'm actually would like to see some of the levels from Path of Exile like that. I mean, you have to like slap a skybox on there, or sort of what I was talking about in what was it? One I did for Halloween, or the previous year, Demonica. Yeah, I mean, like I've seen a lot of isometric games where, you know, if we could go through and like slap some walls and a skybox on it and change the camera, it would just feel completely different. It really does. Well, yeah, I mentioned in the Dream Software video that somebody made a Doom mod for Zombies Ate My Neighbors. And yeah, that lends itself really well. And it feels really different, you know, looking at that. So those are the ones I'm most interested in because it's just, if depending on the game, it doesn't necessarily have to be a ton of work, but it's really transformative in how it feels. And it's the sort of thing where if you've already played the game and you like it and you're familiar with it, this is a way to see it just from a completely different way. And so I like stuff like that. I find I definitely find a lot of interest in those. Would you say that have you noticed an increase in divisionism being pushed in the media over the past few years? Well, lately, yeah, definitely. Yep, it could be before that. I mean, it's sort of it's hard to say how deliberate it is. Well, it's definitely deliberate, but it's hard to say how much of that is some larger agenda and how much is that just to get clicks. Because if you can raise controversy and divide people, that gets more traffic, and then that's what steers the ship for a lot of news sites. So, yeah, I have noticed that actually. That's why I made that's why I made the recent conflict. The realities are getting a little the divide. If we're getting totally different accounts of some events, and then we don't get a follow up, I mean, what are you supposed to do with that? Okay. You've touched on this some of your videos. Trackmania. Do you think it should be required online only game to have all versions of it publicly available? I guess required. No, I mean I feel like a version should be required so that people who bought it can play it. Um, I'd say required, no, but I would be totally on board with highly incentivizing that thing. And if it was required, I wouldn't have a problem with it. It's just that that's less of yeah, because they're talking about like World of Warcraft or games that have changed a lot. That's that's a smaller battle to me, and that's one where I feel like the devs can have more legit reasons, whereas the reasons for not having an end of life plan game of games that you sell to people and they pay you money for, I feel like I feel like all the reasons are just very weak excuses. Whereas this, it's like that can become kind of a nightmare for the devs, and I'd say more often than not, the newer versions are better, but not always. I understand that it's not always the case. So it's kind of like I'm sympathetic to the dev side of things too for that, where just maintaining the old one can become like impossible for them. However, if they release that, then that can kind of like fragment the player base depending on the game, so that can kind of be like a death knell in itself. But it's more of a mess in my opinion, and it's less outright robbery than what's happening with a lot of games as a service. I guess you could kind of make it more clear that game is subject to change. Okay. Questions about desserts I don't need to focus on. Okay, somebody's mentioning they found the backbeat for the Fat People Not Good song from Soul Protection. Any chance I might do a video on Assassin's Creed Unity? Probably not. The story wasn't really grabbing me, and it kind of felt more like all the other Assassin's Creed. It's just I found the setting and the environment spectacular. So, um, in fact, I think I gave up on the gameplay and just watched a playthrough. But I mean, I don't know. I might go through it real slowly. Yeah, that's right. I didn't play through that one. I mean, it's even though I think it's a fantastic setting for the game. The I remember the writing having that writing by committee feel to it, and just feeling kind of lost and not kind of aimless. I don't know. Okay, I'll mention it. I mentioned this before. I'll do it real quick. They're wondering how they recognized Kleiner, but didn't recognize Eli. Eli has been retconned to the best of my knowledge. Was the mention of the name Eli anywhere in the original Half-Life? I mean, I think they're saying he was the black scientist model when you come back. However, it's like Barney. Barney, I think, was mentioned in the file names of the original Half-Life, but never in the game. And which one's Barney? Like the one you meet at the front? The one that kind of like helps. Well, I guess it's the one at the front because about that beer I owed you. But it's like they took an NPC that was just sort of like an anomalous collective character that you're just not supposed to take too seriously and try to turn him into a mainstay character. And I feel like it's the same thing with Eli. They took the generic black scientist as opposed to the generic scientist with the Einstein hair or the generic scientist that looks like with the eyeglasses and made him a mainstay character. It's like, well, we're kind of, if you really wanted to make him a character, you should have made him a character from the begin with, especially if these are callbacks. The reason he recognizes Kleiner was mentioned in the game manual. 100% mentions that, like, I think it says that's, you intern for him. So, okay, that's fair. He's in the manual, it counts. So, that was, so I'm basically holding them to Half-Life 1 standards on the story. It's like, if you expected me to know this, you should have given me something, you should have given it to me in Half-Life 1. Otherwise, no, it's all new territory. So. Yeah, because I think in Freeman's Mind too, I think I kind of passed off with Barney. I said something like, oh yeah, well there's like not ringing a bell, like, or yeah, you guys are like all blended together or something like that. It's like, oh yeah, Freeman talked to the security guards, but I mean, which one is which? He doesn't know. Like, so that's kind of I think that was the only way to handle that. So. Oh shoot, this is my bad. Any updated on user submitted subtitles? If Daniel Sangyo is in the chat, apparently there's several forum subtitles that haven't been submitted yet. So get to it if you can, Daniel. Okay, he's there. So yeah, apparently there's a lot, and like I think in the foreign languages, maybe. Okay, he says he's behind. He apologizes. So we're both apologizing then. Sorry about that. It'll happen though. Okay, so he says he's going to work on it. Okay. Somebody linked to a study. I saw this like yesterday. They're saying apparently there was a 300-page study that found that piracy doesn't lead to decreased sales, and I think it said the EU tried to suppress it. Or no, they did suppress it. Now it's coming out, and this article is from like 2017, so I guess it got resuppressed. Yeah, it sucks. How do we undo decades of corporate lobbying, propaganda, and indoctrination of both politicians and the public at large? Well, that's the $1 million question. That extends to way more than just games. Believe me, you'll have plenty of people wanting an answer to that question. So I'm saying, where did the Ross lives in a Soviet bunker meme come from? I don't know either. I think they just misunderstood moon gaming. Yeah, I've seen that once or twice. I don't know either. Somebody was wondering if I would still do police nowadays if I hadn't had the option. Yeah, because of what happens on social media and perception. Yeah, because I mean, I would still be me. It's I if I was a cop, I mean, I say this not knowing what the cop culture would be at whatever precinct was hiring, because that can influence a whole lot. But I mean, take something like body cameras. Those protect you. If you're a cop, those show, okay, I followed procedure. This guy was a raging crackhead. He says I did all this stuff. Video shows I didn't. Fine. It's on him. Like the the way I see it, cameras protect good cops. However, cop culture can really spin things, so it depends. Are you aware of Microsoft Pluton? No, I did a quick search on that. I didn't have time to really get into the details of what it was. However, this reminds me, there was a processor that came out that, boy, I hope this does not catch on. The AMD developed for Lenovo, where it basically has a physical kill switch built in as a security feature, where if it's not matched with a specific motherboard, or after it's matched, then it has to use that motherboard, then it dies. Like if it does, it'll destroy itself. I was thinking, good God, this is not something I want. And I mean, we're having enough problems with planned obsolescence as it is. People brought up e-waste concerns, which I kind of agree with. I mean, they're talking about how, now this wasn't meant for the average consumer, but I think they were using like the same dies as shared with like some other consumer CPUs. They just turn that feature off or something. But like, I'm not technical enough to know if there was literally no other solution around this for like server security, but I would have to think there must be. I mean, and like how and what level of protection would that give exactly? Being able to nuke. It seems like physically destroying it is too far. It seems like you would need like okay, like let's say security is of paramount importance, right? What if it had like some, yeah, geez, in the old days you had like dip switches. What if you had something where if it detects like bad code in a high security environment, instead it shuts down the CPU and it locks it, and the only way to unlock it is with some external dongle that you have to physically hook up. So in other words, it would basically, the computer's bricked until somebody goes down there and actually manually reactivates it with something that can only happen at the local site. See, then you wouldn't have the waste, and then you wouldn't have this precedent of like, let's just destroy things. And that would be more economical because then you wouldn't have to buy a new CPU. I mean, is that really something that would be impossible as opposed to just destroying the damn CPU? I mean, I don't. Right now, this is only in like high security sectors, but like I'm against this on just like every level. Maybe a security expert can tell me if what I'm describing, if there's literally no alternative, but. Because like I can understand like you have to shut down the CPU because things have been compromised. But then if then you'd have to have like a Mission Impossible style thing where he's coming in through the ventilation shaft in order to get to it. Then I think that would be enough. I think that would be enough security. So okay, a few more questions. I haven't read Masters of Doom, I'm afraid. They're saying modern games are terrible. It depends. I am noticing some older games, I feel like they have more soul than a lot of newer ones. And it's the thing where, again, my brain knows the difference, but I'm not sure what exactly it amounts to. I'm not very, they're asking about the subreddit work reform. They're saying it's a branch off of anti-work. I saw the anti-work a couple times before. They had the memes. Look, I'm 100% sympathetic towards not wanting hell jobs. And like, and the thing is, like, I don't think we're necessarily on this road to utopia where we just don't work and automation handles everything. But it's like, why does it have to, when we have abundant resources, why does everything have to be 40 hours or more? You know, why can't the hell job, I feel like in a better world, you know, let's say it's a crap job nobody wants. Well, fine. Then that pays as much as, like, for part-time as like you can support yourself on part-time. And then we structure society to pay more for that job. I'm picking garbage men, like just out of a hat, because that's probably not a lot of fun, just picking up trash all day and smelling that. But that's a very necessary job. So it's like, what if we cut down the hours on that? So they only have to work like 20 hours a week, and then, but they can support. But it's, then you get into like plant. Well, I guess it gets complicated. It's like you can't. It's like a Jenga thing where you can't pull that piece without. Maybe not, Jenga's not the right analogy. It's something where you can't just change that without changing 50 other things also. Is a problem. Okay, so I'll take live questions now. Put the at Ross broadcast. Sorry I went on so long again. I'll just try to make this quick. Have you ever heard of played Hostile Waters or No One Lives Forever? I have played No One Lives Forever. I still need to play Hostile Waters. I think that's what, Antius Rising or something like that. I think that one's on my 2 playlist. I have played No One Lives Forever 1 and 2. Opinions, it's all right. I mean, it's not my thing as much. However, like if you're somebody who likes like 60s comedy or like the 60s aesthetic and comedy, like if you really like Austin Powers or like I'm trying to think. I want to say there was like there's some other comedies from that era, that sort of thing. Then I could see people being really into it. I mean, the gameplay is good, but would you rather have a full VR system like Sword Art Online or a holodeck system like in Star Trek? I think the holodeck. I mean, what's going to top the holodeck, you know? I mean, the thing is, VR is as close as we're going to get to that. Do you use IRC for anything besides the video chat? I don't even have the IRC hooked up at the moment. And no, I haven't used IRC in a long time. I mostly just did it for that, so the scrolling questions wouldn't go by too fast. I already answered your Assassin's Unity question. You'll have to watch you'll have to rewind the Twitch or else watch it on YouTube. My hair is so fabulous. I don't know if I call it fabulous. I just like how I look with long hair better than short hair. My wife agrees though. She likes it. So I guess that's who probably counts more to me than anyone. So. Are you going to avoid using BBC videos in the future after the dispute, even if it be fair use? Yeah, I might, unless it was just a complete fit for what I'm talking about. I mean, it's going to have a bit of a chilling effect, but I'm going to fight this all the way. So we'll see what happens. I mean, because the way I used it in that video, if that's not fair use, and again, in the UK law, it's called fair dealing. If that's not fair dealing, then I think like almost nothing is. And it's just corporations get their way and all these laws stuff, that's just noise. I would like to have the finality of that. So, I mean, the knowing. Obviously, that's not my outcome. I have not heard of Mystery Flesh Pit National Park. That sounds something like a spinoff of Omega Mart. Did Mike get his week of free lunch after on a rail? I hadn't thought about that. I figured Mike could probably be in the hospital. So I hadn't really thought past that. Any book recommendations for someone needing guidance? Geez, I don't know. Those aren't really kind of books I read, but from what I've read, I mean, I'm not really into like self-help stuff. I feel like a lot of it's fluff, or else they don't. You have to find like the right thing that would resonate with someone. I mean, for me, I might say I still haven't finished it, but it's a huge book. I feel like there's some lessons to be learned in Musashi. You know, there's some good content in there. I know a lot of people have recommended, like, if you're someone who has interest in like drugs and spirituality and stuff, I've heard the book Be Here Now is it's a lot of people like that one. I have not played Stone Keep. That might be one I have a copy of but haven't gotten to yet. How hard would it be to put together a game dungeon for Half-Life, given all the footage and work you did for Freeman's Mind? That really wouldn't be the bulk of it. I mean, but besides, I try not to reuse old footage too much, just because I don't want recompression. You know, that's like a copy of a copy, that sort of thing. Because I don't store them losslessly, because that would get huge. So I would probably record it fresh for it too. I mean, it's the editing and putting it together, I think, is probably the most time-consuming part, and voicing it, and yeah, just editing in general. If you decide to learn a game engine, what genre would you pick to make a practice game? Well, I will be learning more for the movie, I guess, but the movie is different because I'm having still shots and I need characters interacting with things, physics. It's not really about gameplay. I don't know. I mean, if I was going to make a game, I mean, I don't know. I have to think about it. It's like, because I might want to lean more towards a 2D game, but I'm trying to think of like what would be most fun as a 2D thing. Maybe an RPG, but that's probably not a great idea for a practice game, because RPGs tend to be like all in, you know, in terms of how deep the game gets. Do you watch any esports? No, I don't really. I sometimes watch highlights, like if they're particularly notable, like that guy who had his computer reboot while he was doing Counter-Strike because of a Windows update. Or there's a famous one, I think it was Street Fighter 3, where there was this match going and this guy did this devastating attack on him, and he's down to just like a sliver of health. So he has no room for error. And then the other guy launches into like this ultimate combo move. I'll put a link to this in the description. And as I understand it, I think it was Street Fighter 3. As I understand it, if you block damage, that blocks most of the damage, but a little bit gets through. I mean, it's totally worth it normally. But here, the margins were so thin. If he was going to block this haymaker attack coming at him, it doesn't work. However, you can parry the attack if your timing is absolutely perfect. I'm not sure how much, maybe it's like 1 to 3 frames wiggle room or something for this to happen. And he just did one after the other. Like, this was like Kung Fu Master level stuff. And like the crowd is going bananas. So yeah, that one's, chat's saying blocking a single hit would kill him. So, and then he does that through a turnaround, then he does the super attack. It's like one of the best reversals ever in video gaming. So yeah, if it's stuff on that level, I'll happy to watch esports. But I'm someone who'd be better with like a best of or highlights reel or something like that. I don't really care about individual teams or something, or something's really funny, that sort of thing. So, but yeah, when you know what's happening, it's hard not to be impressed from that. Again, that was Kung Fu Master level esports, you know. Okay, somebody's saying 3-frame window. I don't know what the details are, but it's very, apparently it's very difficult to pull off, and it was just one after the other. Like it was just, it was pretty amazing. So, uh, what did you remember saying you played Chrono Trigger for? What do you think of it? I think it's a really great game. I mean, great visuals, great music, engaging story. I don't really like the combat, but that's more of a me thing. Uh, it's it's a big epic adventure. I mean, it's a lot to like. When will you update your games list on Accursed Farms? I guess soonish. I haven't kept up as much. I still have a list. Not too many entries. I think it's only like 8 or something. But I'll catch up some more. I've been more busy with things. I have not seen Mr. Bean a Half-Life 2 video. I'm not really seeking out many Half-Life 2 videos, but maybe I could look at it. Again, I'm kind of saturated with Half-Life. I played a story about my uncle. It was okay, but I kind of gave up on it and just watched a playthrough for the remainder, and I'm kind of glad I did. I got to like the caves with the villagers. I mean, it was okay, but just there was a lot of competition. Do you think full body haptic feedback will be a big deal in the future of VR? It could be, but I'm not holding my breath on that. That could be the sort of thing where only like it only has a market for like the wealthy, that sort of thing. Ever thought about Freeman losing it and starting to use speedrunning strats? No, because uh, I, I'm treating it like this is real for Freeman. So where's he speedrunning to? You know, he's not. And like, how is he speedrunning? He's not going to be using game exploits. You know, I did do that as an outtake though. Well, not a speed run where we had the physics glitch where the cardboard box flings them. You can look that up if you want. Do you like garlic, cooked or raw? Maybe not raw so much, but yeah, I like garlic. I'm not sure it's on the approved list for making my skin break out, but yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it's like yeah, it's like you know how vampires can't handle garlic. I'm like that with vinegar. I am to vinegar what vampires are to garlic, but garlic I like just fine. So I have not played Second Sight, though that's on my to play list. Okay, any plans to watch modern recent movies like the Batman? Well, once it's cheap for me to watch it, sure. Uh, though with comic book movies, there's an awful lot. I'm not like in a rush for those. So, uh, though I am interested in I know the barest minimum, and that's enough for me to want to go in blind. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I like the title. I've heard it's gonna have more horror vibes. Fine, I'm in. So, okay, I'm gonna end it here. Just thanks for showing up. Thanks for still watching the videos, though, or having patience. I guess, yeah, having patience, because I know it's not looking good from the viewer end, but trust me, it's a much better situation on my end. It's just though though I'm saying right now, if the news says nuclear escalation likely, I'm going to stop all work. Okay, like I'm just gonna have fun. So I'm just giving you a warning. All right, that's it. Well, I'll see you.